In this world, every day countless people die for various reasons. Some causes are expected, while others die from accidents, something they never anticipated. At a school in South Korea, under a bright blue sky with white clouds and golden sunshine, a male student, dressed in a spotless white uniform, isn't playing or studying. Instead, he is falling from the rooftop. Surrounding him are towering skyscrapers. Why? A flash of doubt crossed the boy's mind. However, in the final moments of his life, the answers to these questions no longer seem to matter. The camera zooms in on his face, his eyes wide open, with a confused expression. His handsome, angular face is covered with wounds. The wind howls in his ears. Even now, he still doesn't understand why he's falling from the rooftop. His plan wasn't complete yet. He had intended to graduate early and endure all hardships. As he falls, his gaze turns toward the rooftop where 4 boys are leaning against the railing. One boy's expression is unclear, but the remaining 3 have mocking smiles on their faces as they watch him fall. Time seems to freeze in that moment, both fast and slow. His face shows a vague expression. He doesn't understand, truly doesn't understand how things came to this. But there's one thing he knows for sure: today is the day he will die. He simply accepts the outcome he's about to face. His body falls straight down, head tilting toward the ground as he plummets quickly. In his mind, he's thinking, am I really going to die? Is death waiting for him, or something else? The protagonist, is he really going to die? Something unexpected must have happened. Let's wait and see what fate has in store for our protagonist. The scene shifts to a hospital. Time passes quickly, and a nurse's voice is heard. Ma'am, it's been 3 months. I'm so sorry to inform you, but I've never seen a patient recover after being diagnosed as being in a vegetative state. I think you should prepare for. The scene cuts to the hospital hallway and then to a room. Inside, we see a young man with his head wrapped in white bandages, a breathing tube attached to his nose, lying motionless on a bed. Beside the bed is an elderly woman with hair as white as snow, listening to the nurse. Upon hearing the nurse's words, she suddenly cries out, interrupting her. What are you talking about? Are you saying my grandson will never wake up? Do you want me to give up on him? Her emotional outburst flusters the nurse, who quickly tries to explain. I didn't mean it that way, ma'am. The young man lying unconscious in the hospital bed is the same student who fell from the rooftop. Although unconscious, the boy can still perceive everything happening around him. He thinks to himself, after falling from the rooftop, I was diagnosed as being in a vegetative state, something I had only heard about before. Sitting by his bedside, the elderly woman tightly holds his hand, sobbing, calling his name. The sound of his grandmother's voice makes Yoon-sung aware of her presence. She continuously encourages her grandson, urging him not to give up. Wake up, my grandson, wake up. How could you leave like this? Her voice echoes in Yoon-sung's ears, and he can hear her cries. I'll be fine, he thinks. I've never been seriously ill before. I'm sure I'll be able to walk again soon. However, in this dark world, there is nothing he is allowed to do. In the silence of the night in the hospital room, his grandmother's voice breaks through again. She's crying while gripping his hand, saying, Yoon-sung, they told me to give up hope. How can I? I raised you after your parents died, I'll never abandon you. She cries out beside him, almost as if begging him. Just once is enough. Show me any sign that you're still aware. Hearing his grandmother's heart-wrenching plea, Yoon-sung tries desperately to move his body. Move, just move, he shouts angrily at himself in his own mind. At another moment, outside Yoon-sung's hospital room, bright sunlight illuminates everything. From within the room, a voice calls out. Brother, I can't hold on any longer. By Yoon-sung's bedside, a young boy in a school uniform lies face down, sobbing. Those jerks who bullied you are now bullying me. The boy's face is bruised and bandaged, showing an expression of both pain and despair. Hearing his younger brother's words, Yoon-sung curses angrily at those monsters. The boy continues. Grandma has started working at a restaurant to pay for your medical bills, and they keep hurting me. What am I supposed to do? The boy sobs as he tells the story of their family's struggles. This boy is Yoon-sung's younger brother, Kim Yoon-jin. Hearing all this, Yoon-sung is shocked. What? Grandma is at her breaking point? Kim Yoon-jin? His younger brother, filled with despair, shouts. Brother, just go. We wouldn't have to suffer like this if you were dead. The boy cries until his voice becomes hoarse, tears streaming down his face as he screams. Please wake up. Don't just lie there. Get up already. The tears of his family pour down, touching Yoon-sung's heart, making him forget the need to stand up and live. He thinks to himself, even my own tears won't fall, this must be a dream. I'm in a long dream. If I wait just a little longer, I'll surely wake up from this dream. Yoon-sung thought to himself. Maybe reality was too cruel, so he comforted himself this way. Time passed by quickly, and it had already been 3 years since Yoon-sung's accident. In the hospital's green courtyard, many patients were either taking walks or resting. In his hospital room, Yoon-sung sighed internally, it's been a while since Yoon-jin last came. In the room, 2 women were chatting. One whispered, did you hear that Kim Yoon-sung's grandmother fainted? The other replied, really? Is that true? Yoon-sung was shocked. What? Outside the room, the 2 women laughed and said. It seems we can turn up the volume on Traven. Yoon-sung cursed silently, damn it, that means nothing. The faces and names of those people flashed in his mind, Park Min-chun, Jo Ion-taek, Young Min-ho, Kang Ju-ri, Oh Do-won, Kim Ion-chun, and even the teachers who had protected those bastards. If there's some kind of miracle that brings me back to that moment, I will crush every single one of them. As if some mysterious force was at play, everything became blurry and passed quickly, from Yoon-sung lying in the hospital bed to a picture of him and his grandmother. Yoon-sung was filled with rage, driven mad by his desire for revenge against those who bullied him. He grabbed Park Min-chun by the head, making him scream in terror, crying for help. It hurts. Yoon-sung kept beating him, asking, does it hurt more than it did for me, bedridden for years? No matter how much it hurts, it can't compare to what my grandmother had to endure. Yoon-sung's voice was filled with anger as his vision turned red. All those who had bullied him were lying defeated on the ground. His mind was in turmoil. No, this isn't what I want. There's no revenge like this. From start to finish, no matter the method, he would plan to uproot them, making sure they could never rise again. I'll make them face a pain far worse than anything I've been through, he thought, forming a perfect plan to destroy everything in their lives. Time outside continued to pass, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, and then came the 7th year. That long period was filled with torment for his soul. His heart was scarred and overflowing with hatred for those who had wronged him. His dark thoughts persisted. Yes, this plan isn't bad. Let's deal with that bastard. Yet, outside Yoon-sung's hospital room, 15 years had passed. He was still lying motionless in his bed. In his despair, he thought, it's all useless anyway. I don't care who it is. Please, just end my life. For 15 long years, Yoon-sung lay motionless in his hospital bed, unable to do anything. The hopes he once had, the rage he once felt, the hatred he had harbored, all of it seemed to have reached its limit. He was at the point where he desperately begged for his life to end. Outside his hospital room, Yoon-sung's eyes were filled with tears. In his subconscious, a tall, muscular man dressed in a patient's gown appeared. The man looked at him and smiled softly. Yoon-sung smiled back at him. Suddenly, the scene shifted to a place bathed in sunlight. He thought to himself, is it morning already? This place feels like a classroom. Everything around him seemed so familiar. The murmuring of voices made him think of the familiar sound of a television. A blackboard? A blackboard? Yoon-sung suddenly snapped out of his daze. A blackboard? Then there was a commotion. Stop it. Stop it, you bastard. Yoon-sung couldn't believe what he was seeing. In the classroom, students were chatting and laughing. He thought, yes, this must be another dream. He pinched his own cheek, but the pain woke him up from his illusion. If this isn't a dream, he thought. He noticed a pen on the desk. Without hesitation, Yoon-sung grabbed the pen and stabbed it into his thigh. The sharp pain made him realize it wasn't a dream. I'm really back? After countless moments of hope followed by despair, he couldn't believe this was real. Yoon-sung sat there in the classroom, dazed, still holding the pen. Suddenly, a loud voice echoed through the room. What the hell did you just say? It was Park Min-chun. He shouted while raising his foot and kicking a boy who was sitting at the back of the class, causing him to fall to the ground. Everyone around could only stand and watch. Park Min-chun continued to kick the boy while cursing at him. You do it yourself, huh? You bastard. If I wanted to do it myself, why would I tell you to do it? The boy being beaten was covered in blood, his face a mess, as he pleaded. Stop, I won't do it again. The boy's cries for mercy stirred up memories of Yoon-sung's own pain and suffering. He froze, thinking, this is the beginning of my own torment. Images from the past flooded Yoon-sung's mind, his years lying motionless in a vegetative state. His grandmother crying until her heart was torn apart, Yoon-jin desperately begging him to wake up. His fall from the rooftop, his helplessness. The faces of those who had caused him all this suffering were burned into his memory from that time. Without thinking further, Yoon-sung stood up, walked toward Park Min-chun, and said, "Stop it." Park Min-chun turned his head, thinking he had misheard. He sat on the desk and mocked with a sneer. Interesting, Kim Yoon-sung. Do you really think you can handle this situation? Do you think you're different from this guy? You're just dreaming." Yoon-sung said nothing, silently standing there as Park Min-chun ridiculed him. The students around them were too scared to intervene, simply watching in fear. Without warning, with a cold, emotionless face, Yoon-sung threw a punch straight into Park Min-chun's face. At that moment, Yoon-sung truly felt it. He had returned to his first year of high school. Back to the very moment he had always wished for. As for Park Min-chun, he was completely shocked that someone he had looked down on had hit him. Time had rewound to that fateful day, the day when Yoon-sung's life would change dramatically, not for the better. But in a way Yoon-sung could never have imagined. Yoon-sung could still remember everything clearly about that day. During the break, the students were busy doing their own things or happily chatting with friends. At the back of the classroom sat a boy with dyed blonde hair, wearing nothing but a white tank top, completely against the school's dress code. That was Park Min-chun. He only half listened to the lessons and was the typical bully, harassing others. Park Min-chun loved playing an online game called Legend Online. Wanting someone to level up his character, he grabbed a chubby, smart-looking boy sitting at the back of the class. "Hey, you're pretty smart, right? You must be good at online games. Level up my character for me, will you?" He said this while holding his phone in one hand and pressing hard on the chubby boy's shoulder with the other. His tone seemed friendly, but it was full of threats, scaring the boy into agreeing. Seeing this, Park Min-chun smiled and said, "You just said yes, didn't you? So, you're going to level up my character from now on, right?" From that day on, Lee Young-min, the top student in the class, chubby, gentle, and academically brilliant, became Park Min-chun's gaming machine. Lee Young-min's grades began to drop, but Park Min-chun didn't care. He continued to harass him like a shadow that never left. "You score so high, you must have a lot of money, right?" Park Min-chun mocked, squeezing every penny out of Lee Young-min to fund his in-game purchases and items. Lee Young-min, under immense pressure, finally exploded one day, telling Park Min-chun, "Do it yourself from now on." That was the day Yoon-sung witnessed violence right before his eyes for the first time. He didn't want to get involved, but he remembered how Lee Young-min had sometimes kindly helped him with his studies. Yoon-sung couldn't just stand by and watch Lee Young-min get beaten without anyone stepping in to help. Seeing Yoon-sung about to run over to intervene, his friend grabbed his hand and said, "Don't." Yoon-sung disagreed and protested, "This isn't right." His friend, worried, tried to stop him, saying, "Are you crazy? That's Park Min-chun. If you mess with him, it's like digging your own grave." Although Yoon-sung understood what his friend was saying, he still firmly pulled his hand away, thinking to himself, "I'm a special athletic student, never ranking below the top among male students. I can handle this." With that, Yoon-sung approached Park Min-chun, who was beating Lee Young-min, and demanded that he stop. Park Min-chun, surprised, turned around to look at Yoon-sung. In that moment, the name Park Min-chun no longer scared Yoon-sung. Just as the teacher arrived, the situation was dealt with in a rough manner. From that day on, Park Min-chun's gang began relentlessly harassing Yoon-sung. Every day, Yoon-sung was dragged out by Park Min-chun's group and beaten senselessly, the violence never ceasing. His body was always covered in injuries, never having a single day of peace. Beaten to the point of exhaustion, Yoon-sung sometimes couldn't even sleep at night due to the bullying. For example, they forced him to run errands and buy in-game items for them. Despite his battered body, covered in blood, Yoon-sung stayed up all night grinding levels for Park Min-chun and his cronies. There was no word other than hell to describe his current situation. Time had returned to the beginning of that hellish period. No matter what, Yoon-sung would never forget that semester of his first year in high school. The entire class was stunned as they witnessed Yoon-sung throw a punch at Park Min-chun, the school's top bully. Even Park Min-chun himself had never imagined being hit like that. He stood frozen, wide-eyed, for 5 seconds before snapping back to reality. He roared like a wild beast that had been violated. "You bastard!" But before he could act, Yoon-sung's hand was already on him, grabbing his head and smashing his face down onto the desk in front of everyone. The impact was so intense that Park Min-chun's legs shook uncontrollably. Yoon-sung's grip on his hair remained tight as he lifted him up again. Park Min-chun's face was now covered in blood, and blood dripped from his mouth, pooling on the desk from the violent impact. His vision was still blurred from the shock, unable to focus his eyes. A few students whispered, shocked, "Look at the blood, the class president." Despite the murmurs around him, Yoon-sung didn't stop. In that moment, that scene etched itself deeply into his mind. Even after Park Min-chun lost consciousness, Yoon-sung continued to strike him repeatedly, unleashing all the pent-up frustration he had endured over the years. It was Park Min-chun who had pushed Yoon-sung and his family into such misery. Park Min-chun had always relied on his size and strength to bully others, never used to being hit himself. He had always believed that if someone like Yoon-sung ever struck first, he would be able to easily overpower them. As Park Min-chun regained his senses after being punched in the face and prepared to grab Yoon-sung by the hair and slam him onto the desk, Yoon-sung had already anticipated this move for 15 long years. He had even rehearsed the next steps in his mind. Park Min-chun had no idea how long Yoon-sung had been waiting for this moment. Now, after landing countless punches on Park Min-chun's face, Yoon-sung grabbed him by the shirt and hurled him toward the lockers at the back of the classroom. Park Min-chun stumbled, his back slamming into the lockers. Yoon-sung quickly charged forward, delivering a series of to his face and body. Each punch and kick was merciless. At that moment, only one thought occupied Yoon-sung's mind. No matter how badly Park Min-chun got beaten, if he dared to lift his head, he'd kick him in the face. If he dared to raise his hands to block, he'd break his arms. Suddenly, a chair flew across the room, striking Yoon-sung as he beat Park Min-chun. Yoon-sung turned his head coldly, looking toward the source of the throne chair. In front of him stood a group of students bursting through the back door of the classroom, shouting, "Stop it, you bastard! You just called for Min-chun, didn't you?" Seeing this group of students, Yoon-sung wasn't scared at all. He simply shook his head and, with a chilling crackle, replied, "What if I don't want to stop?" His defiant attitude shocked the group. None of them had ever encountered someone who dared speak to them like that. One of the students muttered under his breath, "This bastard is crazy." Among the group storming into the classroom with Yoon-sung was a student with purple hair and multiple piercings, who seemed like someone who knew better than to cross Park Min-chun. But if he was siding with Yoon-sung, it was clear he wasn't oblivious to the situation. He showed no fear and asked calmly, "Can I help with anything?" This purple-haired student was Yoon Min-ho, a member of Park Min-chun's gang from first year class 8. Standing next to Yoon Min-ho was a large, muscular student with a fierce expression. He spoke up, "Scared, huh? Good. Today, I'll finish this game of yours." They were part of Park Min-chun's gang, notorious for bullying weaker students. The big student took a few steps forward, cracking his neck and flexing his joints as he approached Yoon-sung. Seeing him draw closer, Yoon-sung immediately recognized him as the best fighter in Park Min-chun's group. His name was Kong Trang-suk, also a member of the gang from first year class 8. Yoon-sung coldly watched as Kong Trang-suk advanced toward him, ready to attack like a predator about to devour its prey. But suddenly, a female voice with short hair called out from the doorway, "The teacher's coming." That announcement abruptly interrupted the fight that was about to unfold. Suddenly, Park Min-chun, who was leaning against the locker, spoke up. "Trang-suk, let's go. We'll deal with this later." Before leaving, Kong Trang-suk bent down to get face-to-face with Yoon-sung, leaning in close and warning him, "You better believe, you little bastard, I'll find you after class." As Park Min-chun's gang turned to leave, Kong Trang-suk glanced back to threaten Yoon-sung again. "Don't even think about running." A skinny boy in the group chimed in. "You can look forward to it." Yoon-sung said nothing, simply watching them go, while Park Min-chun stayed behind, clutching his head and groaning in pain. "My head." Shortly after, the teacher entered the classroom, and the lesson proceeded as usual. Sitting at the back of the class, Park Min-chun folded his arms and buried his face in his desk, silently seething. "Damn it, what the hell just happened?" he thought. "I was hit first, but then I ended up on the ground." The more Park Min-chun thought about it, the more humiliated he felt. He cursed silently. "Kim Yoon-sung, you dared to humiliate me. I'll kill you." His eyes burned red with rage, his face twisted in anger. He stole a glance toward Yoon-sung's seat and thought, "After class, we'll all gather here. You think you can escape?" If I hadn't let my guard down, I wouldn't have been beaten by that nerd. He must have planned this in advance because he's never gotten involved when I bullied that kid. Sure, as class president, he intervenes occasionally, but there's always been a line he wouldn't cross. Because of that, Park Min-chun never saw a reason to clash with Kim Yoon-sung. But now, one thing was clear. Kim Yoon-sung crossed the line. After class, I'll make sure you regret it. The teacher's voice interrupted his thoughts. "Everyone, pay attention. Today's content will be on the midterm exam." At the back of the class, a skinny boy with a hair clip on his head grumbled. That guy's such a pain. Kang Trang-suk, sitting next to him, replied. If only class would end sooner. Sitting between them, young Minho glanced at the clock on the wall and replied. But what about Kim Yoon-sung? Did he lose his mind? He's acting like he has no way out. I thought we'd easily handle him. Young Minho crossed his arms, still annoyed, and added. But since he did what he did, we'll have to stomp on him in front of everyone. He rested his chin on his hand and pondered. Do you think he'll report this to the teachers? The skinny boy next to him responded. No way. Young Minho continued. Maybe he's lost his mind, but whatever the reason, Kim Yoon-sung dared to disrespect us in front of everyone. If we let this go, others might start disrespecting us too. So even though we've been ordered to back off, we should use this opportunity to crush him. Make sure Kim Yoon-sung never dares to look at us with those arrogant eyes again. It seemed like young Minho was the most calculating of the group. He was always scheming, thinking of ways to stomp on Yoon-sung. Back in class 1 to 8, Park Min-chun was still fuming from the humiliation he had suffered in front of everyone. He roared in anger. That bastard, I'm going to kill him. Finally, the school bell rang, signaling the end of class. The teacher left the room, and Park Min-chun couldn't hold back any longer. He slammed his desk and stood up abruptly, thinking to himself. Kim Yoon-sung, you're finished this time. But before he could act, a sudden gust of wind rushed toward him, followed by a powerful kick from Yoon-sung that landed squarely on his face. With a loud thud, Park Min-chun was sent flying across the room, the force of the kick leaving his eyes wide with shock. Before he could recover, Yoon-sung continued his assault, grabbing Park Min-chun by the hair and pulling him up. Park Min-chun was completely disoriented, his mind blank, unable to comprehend what was happening. Yoon-sung yanked his head up, forcing him to look him in the eye, and coldly said. Let's pick up where we left off. Park Min-chun stared helplessly at Yoon-sung, thinking to himself. This bastard. The deal was that you'd stay away from us. But before he could process what was happening, Yoon-sung raised his fist again. Is he really going to hit me again? Park Min-chun thought in disbelief. In class 1 to 8, the teacher announced the end of the lesson, signaling the end of the school day. 3 of Park Min-chun's henchmen immediately stood up. Yoon Minho coldly said, he's got nowhere to run. The skinny boy added, where can he hide in school? They rallied, eager to teach that bastard Kim Yoon-sung a lesson. Outside class 1 to 8, many students had already gathered around the door, whispering among themselves, wondering what was happening. Leading his gang, Yoon Minho stormed toward Yoon-sung's classroom, but as they approached and saw the crowd gathered at the door, they were puzzled. What's going on? Suddenly, they heard the enraged voice of Park Min-chun shouting from inside. You bastard Kim Yoon-sung! The group immediately charged into the classroom, pushing past the students at the door. Young Minho was the first to enter and was met with a shocking sight. Park Min-chun's face was covered in blood, and he appeared to be unconscious. Yoon-sung had his hand gripping Park Min-chun by the collar, pulling him up. Yoon Minho froze at the entrance, staring at Yoon-sung in disbelief, as if he were a monster still intent on continuing the beating. Yoon-sung, raising his fist again, glanced at Yoon Minho standing in the doorway and calmly said, You're late. Park Min-chun's gang stared at Yoon-sung, who had one hand gripping the unconscious Park Min-chun and the other ready to deliver another punch. Seeing this, Kang Trang-suk roared. You bastard! He charged toward Yoon-sung like an enraged bull. At that moment, Yoon-sung was eerily calm, calculating how to finally exact his revenge. A hatred that had eaten away at him for 10 years. Park Min-chun? No problem, but Kang Trang-suk? That was a different challenge. Park Min-chun was easy to deal with, but Yoon-sung knew that with his current strength, it would be much harder to defeat Kang Trang-suk. What should I do now? Yoon-sung's eyes landed on a padlock hanging loosely from a locker in front of him. Simple. He decided to do something he had never done before. Grabbing the padlock, he clenched it tightly in his hand. Suddenly, Yoon-sung smashed the padlock into Kang Trang-suk's temple just as he was charging toward him. With a pained cry, Kang Trang-suk staggered back, blood pouring from the wound. Fair play? I don't care. In the face of revenge, Yoon-sung no longer had time for hesitation. In such a critical moment, there was no room for second thoughts. Yoon-sung didn't stop. He continued grabbing Kang Trang-suk by the hair, while using the other hand to repeatedly smash the padlock into his head. No amount of training could prepare anyone to withstand being hit by metal. He delivered another powerful blow to Kang Trang-suk's head, sending him flying to the ground. Yoon Sung had just taken down the strongest member of Park Min-chun's group. Young Minho and the skinny boy, standing frozen at the door, watched in horror. Yoon Sung, looking as though he was possessed, had brutally beaten their comrade, leaving both of them pale with fear, unable to move. Seeing his chance, Yoon Sung dropped the padlock from his hand. Everything was going according to plan. Now, he set his sights on the next target. The skinny boy, Cho Ion-taek, the last member of the group. Yoon Sung charged at him with terrifying momentum, slamming into Cho Ion-taek with such force that he sent him flying into the hallway. Cho Ion-taek couldn't handle the impact. He had no time to react to Yoon Sung's next attack, as Yoon Sung immediately unleashed a flurry of punches. Cho Ion-taek was completely defenseless against Yoon Sung's assault. Yoon Sung had planned this from the beginning. He wasn't concerned with young Minho, who was closing in from behind. His goal was to incapacitate Cho Ion-taek as quickly as possible, securing victory even though he was outnumbered. After ruthlessly beating Cho Ion-taek to a pulp, Yoon Sung stood over him, blood from Park Min-chun and Kong Trang-suk spattered across his face and clothes. He looked like a vengeful demon emerging from the depths of hell. Yoon Sung had mentally prepared for this moment, but it seemed his body was struggling to keep up with the strategy of his revenge. He was exhausted, barely able to breathe, but he knew he couldn't stop. The revenge wasn't over yet, there was still one more bastard left. Pushing himself to stand, Yoon Sung continued to fight. Young Minho, watching as Yoon Sung systematically defeated all three of his comrades, trembled in fear. He hadn't realized just how strong Kim Yoon Sung had become. Young Minho's mind raced. Is he really that strong now? Could he possibly escape from being one of our bullying targets? It couldn't be true. Kim Yoon Sung couldn't be this powerful. But in young Minho's eyes, Yoon Sung now appeared as a terrifying monster with strength far beyond what he could resist. Yoon Sung's blood-covered face grinned wickedly, staring straight at him. Young Minho broke into a cold sweat, realizing he couldn't defeat him now. Yoon Sung approached young Minho like a demon, whispering, "Shall we finish this?" Hearing Yoon Sung's threat, young Minho's hands trembled uncontrollably. He cursed himself silently. Damn it! Why are my hands shaking? By now, Yoon Sung had raised his fist, ready to strike him. Young Minho, having lost all will to fight, could only close his eyes and raise his arms in a feeble attempt to shield himself. Just then, a voice cut through the tension, interrupting the one-sided beating. "What are you all doing?" They were saved. The teacher's voice rang out, and young Minho felt an overwhelming sense of relief. He smirked inwardly. Haha, yes, the teacher will notice this. Yoon Sung's in trouble now. There are 3 students bleeding, this is a big deal at school. You're done for, you idiot. Young Minho gleefully imagined the mess that Kim Yoon Sung would soon face. In the teacher's office, a voice boomed. Kim Yoon Sung, are you insane? Even if you're a boy, you should know your limits. One of them had to go to the hospital with his face covered in blood. A teacher pointed at Yoon Sung, scolding him harshly. However, deep down, the teacher was worried. This incident could turn into a serious issue, and as Kim Yoon Sung's homeroom teacher, he could be held responsible. To avoid getting involved, it was best to reprimand Kim Yoon Sung harshly. But why was this kid so calm? Faced with such a serious situation, he showed no reaction at all. The teacher couldn't understand his student's behavior. Outwardly, the teacher continued with a stern demeanor. This matter won't be resolved just within the school. I've been a teacher for 10 years, and I've never seen a student like you. You better be prepared. The parents of those boys won't let you off easily. You'll pay for what you've done. Yoon Sung calmly interrupted. Teacher, don't overreact. This isn't the first time there's been school violence. Surprised by the student's insolence, the teacher asked. What did you say? Yoon Sung continued. You may be good at teaching, but maybe you should just focus on yourself. He glanced at the anti-bullying posters plastered around the classroom and smirked. Why don't you just cover this up? That way, I won't cause any more trouble. Yoon Sung smiled coldly, then revealed his true feelings, adding. Teacher, you're truly amazing. As Yoon Sung predicted, the teacher, feeling threatened by the student, slapped him across the face and shouted. You bastard. The other teachers in the room watched coldly, none of them stepping in to stop it, just as Yoon Sung had expected. The reason Yoon Sung had been bullied to the brink of death wasn't simply because of the bullies. It was also because of cowardly adults too busy to care about anything happening around them. After hitting Yoon Sung, the teacher angrily said. Everything has its limits. Don't you feel ashamed? Yoon Sung ignored the teacher's scolding and remained silent, recalling the past. He remembered clearly that this teacher had accepted bribes from parents, especially from Kim Anchuan's family. As the homeroom teacher for the upperclassmen, this teacher was nothing but a piece of trash, unworthy of respect. Yun Sung, with blood trickling from the corner of his mouth, coldly said, "Teacher, you should stop now." Seeing the insolence of a student daring to talk back, the teacher became furious, nearly exploding with rage. He raised his hand again, preparing to slap Yun Sung once more, shouting, "You bastard!" But Yun Sung, remaining calm, said coldly, "Are you really going to continue?" The teacher was taken aback, asking, "What?" Yun Sung stepped closer and said, "You'd better lower your voice. Otherwise, I could report that you've been accepting bribes from parents. Especially Yun Niho's parents. I happen to know you've been in frequent contact with them. Should I shout that here?" He added. "And even if not, I have other evidence. Like your fear of the English teacher." Realizing he was being blackmailed with his own mistakes, the teacher became terrified. He angrily yelled, "Stop it!" He still raised his hand, intending to strike Yun Sung again. But Yun Sung, unafraid, stared straight into the teacher's eyes and said, cold as ever, "Kim Yun Sung, you bastard." In Yun Sung's past, he had been endlessly bullied and tormented by Park Min-chun's group. Finally, after enduring so much, Yun Sung made a decision. He knew it wasn't the best choice, but he didn't know of any other way to change his situation. He decided to seek help from the adults. He needed help from the teachers because he had been a victim of school violence. One day, Yun Sung opened the door to the teacher's office and found his homeroom teacher, Kim Yong-chun. At that time, Kim Yong-chun was casually sipping his coffee as Yun Sung told him about being bullied. The teacher responded indifferently. "I see. So that's what's happening." He then called Park Min-chun's group to the office, right in front of Yun Sung, and asked them what was going on. Kim Yong-chun looked at Park Min-chun and asked, "Is what he says true?" Park Min-chun casually acted like nothing was wrong, explaining, "No, teacher. There's no reason for me to bully my friend. We were just playing around." Maybe because I'm taller, Yun Sung misunderstood and thought I was bullying him. Although Kim Yong-chun was a teacher, he handled the situation in a careless manner. He simply told them, "Hey kid, whatever happens, don't bully your friends. Don't you think it's better not to punch each other in the face?" Park Min-chun acted very obedient in front of the teacher, putting his arm around Yun Sung and responding, "Yes, teacher, I'll be careful." The others nodded in agreement, pretending to listen attentively. Lee Hoon-sung had struggled to summon the courage to seek help from the teacher, an adult, but it was all in vain. Not only was the issue unresolved, but it also caused Park Min-chun's group to hate him even more. That was how the adults had dealt with his problem. In the teacher's office, Park Min-chun and his gang laughed in front of the teacher, but once Yun Sung stepped outside, Park Min-chun threatened him openly. His body shook with fear as Park Min-chun coldly said, "Come with me, Kim Yun Sung. You think tattling to the teacher will solve everything?" Yun Sung was forced to follow them behind the school, where Park Min-chun beat him mercilessly. Park Min-chun kicked him repeatedly, and Yun Sung lay helpless on the ground, only able to raise his arms to shield himself from the brutal attacks. But no one came to help him. At that moment, Yun Sung realized he had been wrong. He also felt immense anger at how the teacher, Kim Yong-chun, had handled the situation. As a teacher, as someone working in education, shouldn't he at least take seriously what a student said about being bullied? That was the responsibility of a teacher. Yet when Yun Sung was ignored by the teacher and beaten by Park Min-chun, he was consumed with rage. Park Min-chun continued kicking him while cursing, "Die, I'm going to kill you today." At that moment, a figure appeared by the window, witnessing everything. In his despair, Yun Sung thought he saw hope. A teacher, he thought? It must be. Since the teacher had witnessed the beating firsthand, surely he understood the severity of the situation. He would certainly punish them harshly. But before Yun Sung could feel any relief, Kim Chang-chun, the teacher by the window, pretended not to see anything and turned away, leaving. His indifference shocked Yun Sung too. Later, Yun Sung learned that Kim Chang-chun was just a scumbag who accepted bribes from parents, including Ing Min-ho's parents. It had become one of his sources of income. At that moment, Yun Sung finally realized that Kim Yong-chun had never intended to solve the problem from the start. Lying helpless on the ground, tears of humiliation streamed down Yun Sung's face, mixing with the cuts and bruises. He mustered every ounce of strength he had left, determined to deal with the situation, even if he had to face it alone. Even though he knew he couldn't win this battle, he clenched his fists tightly. Despite the overwhelming odds, Yun Sung resolved to stand up to Park Min-chun's gang. Even if the reality he faced was a living hell. That day was particularly violent. But Yun Sung had finally decided to fight back against Park Min-chun's group. But the outcome left Yun Sung in despair. A shrill voice rang out. "Oh my god, what happened to my precious boy's face? What kind of bastard, what kind of monster? Did this to my Minho?" Yun Minho clutched his nose, pretending to be pitiful, and said, "It was Yun Sung who started it. Did that even matter?" Yun Sung didn't deny it, but at that point, he didn't know if denying it even made a difference anymore. After Yun Sung fought back, the entire group ran to the teacher's office to tattle on him. While they reported Yun Sung's actions, Yun Minho stood behind his mother, smiling smugly, knowing his plan had succeeded. Yun Minho's mother, dressed in elegant clothes, defended her son fiercely. She warned everyone. "My son's precious nose is broken. We won't let this go." At that moment, Yun Sung's guardian, his grandmother, entered the teacher's office. To prevent her grandson from being severely punished for fighting, Yun Sung's grandmother, with her hair as white as snow, tremblingly bowed her head and apologized to Yun Minho and his family, saying, "I'm truly sorry." Yun Sung stood in the room, witnessing how the adults handled the situation. Something beyond his control. With no parents, and facing the school's disciplinary board, he had to bear the punishment on his own, even though his injuries were far worse than those of the others. Meanwhile, Park Min-chun's group continued their school life without any obstacles. From then on, Yun Sung fell into a coma for a long time. It was only much later that he realized he couldn't rely solely on physical strength for revenge. Even the intervention of adults needed to be addressed thoroughly in order for him to truly gain the upper hand. Back in the present, after being threatened by Yun Sung, the corrupt teacher glared at him, his eyes filled with fear. His secret had been discovered, and he was terrified. The teacher realized he could be exposed in front of everyone. He couldn't accept being threatened by a mere student. He quickly looked around to make sure no one else was nearby, afraid someone might overhear. Then, trying to calm himself, the teacher pretended to brush off Yun Sung's threats, saying something irrelevant as if he didn't care. But Yun Sung interrupted him. "From now on, when you talk to me, think carefully before you speak." Yun Sung calmly recounted the teacher's misdeeds in detail. "You've been connected to Yun Minho's parents through a former university student you mentored. And you've been receiving monthly payments as a bonus. And you've been having an affair with a married foreign language teacher, a woman with 3 children. The two of you often visit motels together. Do I need to say more, teacher? You've lived such a dirty life, and this is just the tip of the iceberg." Yun Sung casually sat on the swivel chair that the teacher had been sitting in earlier and continued. "If all your dirty secrets come to light, your career as a teacher will be over, won't it? You surely don't think this is all meaningless, do you? If you keep behaving this way, I'll crush your life, even if I had to drive you out of this school." Every word from Yun Sung sent chills down Aran-chan's spine. Yun Sung remembered back when he was in his 3rd year, how Aran-chan's private life had been exposed. His wife came to the school and slapped him hard across the face, throwing divorce papers with a red stamp in his face. Though Aran-chan's family appeared wealthy, rumors had it that all the assets belonged to his wife. If that were true, Yun Sung was certain that what Aran-chan feared most was the exposure of his dark secrets. Faced with Yun Sung's blackmail, Aran-chan had no choice but to surrender. Fear overwhelmed him, and he bowed his head, trembling before Yun Sung, unable to speak. Yun Sung sat in the chair like a teacher, while Aran-chan stood before him like a student confessing a mistake. At that moment, their roles had completely reversed. Aran-chan, defeated, asked, "What do you want me to do?" Yun Sung replied simply, "If you want me to stay silent, just maintain the same attitude you've always had." Aran-chan, confused, didn't fully understand what Yun Sung meant. Yun Sung clarified, "Continue living like the piece of trash you are. Keep turning a blind eye to the students' problems, even when you know it's wrong. But from now on, there's one thing that must change. You have to do this for me. Stop this from blowing up at any cost. If you follow my instructions until I graduate, I won't reveal your secrets. Do you understand?" Aran-chan, sweating profusely, stared at Yun Sung after hearing his demands. His fear grew as Yun Sung, like a demon, manipulated him with every word. Completely subdued, Aran-chan responded, "I understand. From now on, I'll do my best." Yun Sung had removed a major obstacle on his path to revenge. Calmly, he walked out of the teacher's office, thinking to himself that Aran-chan was just the first pawn in his carefully laid plans. He needed to move quickly to prepare the next step. But for now, there were other matters to attend to. Yoon Sung walked toward the classroom door. In Park Min Chun's group, 3 members had already been hospitalized due to their severe injuries. Only Yoon Min Ho remained unscathed, sitting in the classroom, overwhelmed with anger mixed with fear toward Yoon Sung. He realized Yoon Sung was much stronger than he had ever imagined. He cursed under his breath. "You crazy bastard, I'll tear him apart and kill him the moment he steps back in here." As Yoon Min Ho cursed and kicked over desks and chairs in his rage, he thought to himself. "Ran Chun, who's taking money from my mother, won't let Kim Yoon Sung off. At the very least, he'll be forced to drop out of school. I'll never have to see him again or deal with him." But even in his thoughts, a hint of fear crept in. Am I really scared of him? Don't tell me the others couldn't even stop him. His anger surged once again as he yelled. "Damn it!" He lifted a desk and threw it across the room. The other students, terrified, could only watch in silence. No one dared to get involved with Yoon Min Ho. Yoon Min Ho tried to shake off his fear of Yoon Sung. He thought, crazily. I had to be the predator in this school. I absolutely won't let Kim Yoon Sung drag me down. After reassuring himself, he walked to the back of the classroom, sat down, and sighed. It was just a coincidence. That bastard took down 3 of them, but if I face him again, I'll destroy him easily. But Yoon Sung didn't let him stay in his delusions for long. He pushed open the classroom door and called out, "Yoon Min Ho." Yoon Min Ho flinched at the sound of Yoon Sung's voice, which felt like it came straight from hell. Calmly, Yoon Sung said. "Let's finish what we started, shall we?" Yoon Min Ho was paralyzed with fear at Yoon Sung's presence and his question. But before he could even process what was happening, Yoon Sung's fist came crashing down like thunder, striking him with such force that he was thrown out of his chair and onto the floor. Yoon Sung walked slowly toward him, like a demon descending. Fear completely consumed Yoon Min Ho, leaving him trembling, his face pale. He had no strength to resist. Yoon Sung lifted his foot and kicked him in the face, causing Yoon Min Ho to spit out blood. Grabbing him by the collar, Yoon Sung continued to punch and kick Yoon Min Ho mercilessly. Faint cries for help escaped from Yoon Min Ho's mouth as he thought to himself. This crazy bastard, he's completely insane. Please, someone, save me. Suddenly, Yoon Min Ho caught sight of Ran Chun through the window. A glimmer of hope flickered in his heart. It's Ran Chun. That's right, he's taking money from my mom. Ran Chun stood outside the classroom, watching Yoon Sung beat Yoon Min Ho through the window. He remembered his promise and cursed to himself. Damn it. Then, without hesitation, he turned and walked away, pretending he hadn't seen anything. Yoon Min Ho, stunned by Ran Chun's abandonment, was left in disbelief. Yoon Sung, noticing what had happened, coldly informed him. Don't expect any help. No one in this school will come to save you. 5 minutes earlier, while Yoon Sung and Yoon Min Ho were fighting in the teacher's office, Kim Yong Chun sat nervously in his chair, biting his nails, thinking about how to cover up the situation for Yoon Sung. Things had now spiraled beyond Kim Ran Chun's control. 3 students had already been hospitalized, and the school certainly didn't want the situation to worsen. But if he didn't punish Kim Yoon Sung appropriately, the parents of the victims would definitely cause an uproar, especially Yoon Min Ho's parents. They were wealthy, owning many properties in Daesan, and had a strong reputation. They had even donated a significant amount of money to the school. Wasn't the recent school renovation funded by their donations? Both of them were personally welcomed by the principal, so their influence couldn't be underestimated. Most importantly, Kim Ran Chun had been receiving money from them. If they found out what had happened, there would be no way out for him. The thought of the consequences gave him a splitting headache. He held his head in his hands, panicking, unsure of what to do. Kim Ran Chun tried to calm himself, thinking. Think, Kim Ran Chun. Think. If you can't come up with a solution, your life is over. Suddenly, an idea came to him, and his eyes widened. There's no other choice. The only way is to separate Yoon Min Ho from this mess. So far, Kim Yoon Sung hasn't done anything to Yoon Min Ho. He hasn't touched him yet. So, if I can convince Yoon Min Ho's parents to let this go, maybe they'll drop the issue. After all, those injured kids were just friends of their son. Then, if I find Kim Yoon Sung and ask him to leave Yoon Min Ho alone, things won't be so bad after all. It was like finding a lifeline in the face of certain death. Ran Chun grinned, relieved as if he had narrowly escaped a disaster. Without wasting any time, he stood up and walked out of his office, heading toward Yoon Sung's classroom. He thought nervously. I need to get control of Kim Yoon Sung quickly, or the situation will be beyond saving. But as he arrived at Yun Sung's classroom, the scene before him left him frozen in shock. Kim Ah-ran Chun stood paralyzed, unable to believe his eyes. Since when did Kim Yun Sung beat Yun Minho this badly? He thought to himself, I'm doomed, damn it, if Yun Minho's parents find out about this. Or worse, if my affair with the foreign language teacher is exposed. My life is over. With that thought, Kim Ah-ran Chun, feeling utterly defeated, turned around and headed back to his office. Not wanting to witness any more of Kim Yun Sung's brutal beating of Yun Minho. The other students who were watching the fight stood bewildered. Confused as they saw the teacher leave the scene, even though there was an ongoing fight. Back in the classroom, Yun Sung grabbed Yun Minho by the hair, raising his hand to slap him once more. Yun Sung looked furious, still dwelling on the past. You dared to look down on me? Is this all you're capable of? When you and your group bullied me every day for 3 years in high school, you always said it was my fault for being too weak. Look at you now, trembling like a dog, and I haven't even really touched you yet. In reality, after the beating Yun Sung had given him, Yun Minho's once handsome face was bruised and swollen, nearly unrecognizable. The precious son of his parents was now a wreck, trembling in fear before Yun Sung. While it seemed like Yun Sung was going to continue beating Yun Minho to release all his pent-up rage, he made a surprising choice. He let him go. Yun Sung released Yun Minho without saying a word and walked straight to his seat in the classroom. He pulled out his chair, collapsed into it, and sighed deeply. Then, he glanced at Yun Minho, who was still trembling in fear, and muttered under his breath. Stupid bastard. Yun Sung knew that sparing Yun Minho would make it easier for the incident involving the other 3 to be covered up. But he also knew that if he had truly sought revenge from the start, he wouldn't have stopped. He would have punched his way through the school the moment he returned. Instead, he had initially chosen a quiet life, far away from the scumbags that had tormented him. After enduring hell on earth in a coma, the only thing Yun Sung truly desired was revenge. And this was the result. Soon, everything would unravel. 3 people had been dealt with, 1 remained. As the principal had said, he was committed to building the future of a prestigious high school. And he would undoubtedly try to punish Yun Sung harshly for this incident. On the other hand, too many people had witnessed what Yun Sung had done. It would be hard to cover this up, no matter how hard the school tried. Even with all the efforts to maintain its pristine reputation, there was no way to fully protect Yun Sung. If even the prestigious high school couldn't shield him, Yun Sung realized he never should have sought revenge in the first place. This was only the beginning. As Yun Sung sat in the classroom, staring at the ceiling, he started planning his next steps for revenge against all those who had once hurt him and his unfortunate family in the past. The scene shifted to another room, where an angry voice echoed. We will never let this go. Student Kim Yun Sung not only sent the victims to the hospital but also showed brutal violence toward them. Furthermore, after consulting with teacher Kim Eng Chun, Kim Yun Sung showed no remorse at all. Additionally, he viciously attacked student Min Ho. This is truly an unforgivable crime. Have you seen the state of the students who were harmed? They were beaten so badly they were unrecognizable, like gangsters in a movie. The speaker was none other than the principal of Bright Future High School, Mr. Oh Dae-han. Another voice in the room agreed. Yes, I believe we should discipline him immediately. This comment came from a stylishly dressed teacher, the foreign language teacher Lee Min-eng, who was having an affair with Kim Yong Chun, Yun Sung's homeroom teacher. She continued, we must expel Kim Yun Sung. Sitting next to her, Kim Yong Chun was sweating nervously. The student who held the deadly secrets about both him and Lee Min-eng was now being targeted for expulsion. Kim Yong Chun could not allow this to happen. He likely signaled silently for her to stop talking. But Lee Min-eng turned to him, confused, signaling back as if to ask what was going on. Kim Yong Chun looked at her but didn't say a word, silently thinking. Just stay quiet if you don't want our relationship to be exposed. I have to protect Kim Yun Sung at all costs. If he gets expelled, everything will fall apart. Glancing nervously toward the end of the table, Kim Yong Chun saw Yun Sung sitting there, observing the whole exchange. A sly smile on his face. At that moment, Kim Yong Chun spoke up to defend Yun Sung. Kim Yun Sung was indeed wrong, but as the homeroom teacher of class 1 to 8. After following this situation closely, I can say that the real cause of this incident lies with the victims, including Park Min Chun. The meeting to decide Yun Sung's fate continued, with the principal, Kim Yong Chun, and others debating how to handle the situation. Principal Odi-han looked at Kim Young-chun with a puzzled expression after hearing his words. What do you mean by that, Teacher Kim? Kim Young-chun was momentarily speechless but continued to explain. There have been many rumors about Park Min-chun's group regularly bullying other students. I intended to catch them red-handed and discipline them immediately. But it seems that Kim Yoon-sung couldn't endure it any longer. And unfortunately, this incident occurred. Colleagues, before becoming an offender, Kim Yoon-sung was also a victim. If we proceed with punishing him without considering this, it would go against the very ideals of education. Kim Young-chun, sweating with anxiety, struggled to say these words, trying both to protect Kim Yoon-sung and to safeguard his own position. After hearing his explanation, Principal Odi-han, still expressionless, responded. However, Teacher Kim Young-chun, punishment is unavoidable. Hearing that Yoon-sung would still be punished, Kim Young-chun panicked and immediately protested. Principal, but Odi-han, not willing to back down, growled. Teacher Kim Young-chun, sitting at the head of the table, holding the position of authority. The principal was already calculating the next steps. Young Minho's parents wouldn't let this go easily, and to appease their anger, he had to deal strictly with the student responsible for this incident. If he wanted to achieve his dream of turning this school into a prestigious educational institution, maintaining good relationships with powerful people was essential. After careful consideration, Odi-han solemnly declared, we will convene a review committee in 1 week. During that meeting, we will decide whether to formally discipline Kim Yoon-sung or not. In the meantime, I expect all teachers to control this situation and prevent any rumors from spreading. Additionally, Kim Yoon-sung will be suspended until the committee meets. Go home and reflect on how your actions have impacted this school, and return with your guardian in 1 week. Perhaps already expecting the outcome of this meeting, Yoon-sung smirked as he stood up, accepting the principal's decision. I understand. After leaving the meeting room, Kim Young-chun hurried after Yoon-sung, catching up with him. With a flattering smile, Kim Young-chun said, I really tried my best. But the moment you hit Yoon Min-ho, things got out of my control. No matter how hard I tried, it was pointless. Damn it. No, listen, could you just have held back a little? If you could have restrained yourself, I might have been able to fix this while it was still manageable. As Kim Young-chun babbled and begged for Yoon-sung not to reveal his dirty secrets, Yoon-sung smirked and thought to himself. Kim Young-chun, when was the last time you slapped me and looked down on me? In the end, you're just a worthless man. You threw away the dignity of a teacher long ago. The reason I'm getting special treatment from you now is because you're someone who will sacrifice everything for your own benefit. You knew from the start that this situation wasn't going to be easily solved, didn't you? Feigning understanding, Yoon-sung said. You did your best, didn't you? But before Kim Young-chun could be too relieved, Yoon-sung coldly added. It seems like you knew from the very beginning that Park Min-chun's group regularly bullied other students, didn't you? Remember this. Until the day I graduate from this school, the only way you can stop me from revealing everything is to do everything in your power to make my life smooth. I don't care what methods you use. If you can't even manage that, it won't just be you. I'll ruin Lee Min-en's life too. I swear I'm not joking. Yoon-sung used Kim Young-chun's own weaknesses to blackmail him, leaving the teacher stunned. Eventually, Kim Young-chun had to acknowledge that he was completely trapped by Yoon-sung, with no way out unless he complied. Defeated and dispirited, Kim Young-chun reluctantly agreed to Yoon-sung's demands. After dealing with his homeroom teacher, Yoon-sung, expressionless, walked away. But inside, his anger raged like wildfire. He wished he could have destroyed Kim Young-chun completely. If possible, he would have loved to ruin him entirely, but Kim Young-chun wasn't Yoon-sung's true target. He couldn't let his rage make him discard a useful pawn, at least not yet. Until Yoon-sung had established his foothold at Bright Future High School, he still needed him. Though Kim Young-chun was just a lowly teacher, he was someone who would do anything to survive, no matter the cost. 1 week from now would mark the culmination of Yoon-sung's 10 years of meticulous planning and burning desire for revenge. Returning to the classroom, Yoon-sung gathered his belongings, slung his bag over his shoulder, and walked out. The other students in the class looked at him with nervous and curious eyes. At that moment, the principal, No Odi-han, had no idea that what would happen next wouldn't unfold the way he expected. As Yoon-sung stepped out of the school gates, he thought about everything that was about to happen. The sun was setting, casting a dim light over the old, weathered buildings surrounding the area. After school, Yoon-sung slung his backpack over his shoulder and quietly walked down the trash-strewn street, heading home in the light of the setting sun. As he walked, he thought to himself, Finally, I can walk down this alley again. How many years has it been? His rundown apartment, numbered 00, was worth around 50 million won. If not for the life insurance money from his parents, he would have barely been able to scrape by each month on a meager salary. When his mother had to move here to cover his medical bills, Yoon-sung felt like his entire world had crumbled. Walking deeper into the old alley, stepping down the stairs, Yoon-sung observed the scenery around him. It was both familiar and foreign, stirring memories of the past. Despite everything, he felt at peace. Even as a child, he had known that this place was run down, but now he was grateful. At least there was still somewhere he could call home. He opened the door to his empty, dilapidated apartment and called out loudly. "Grandma?" Passing through the small living room, he noticed empty dishes on the dining table. Then he remembered. If he wasn't mistaken, around this time every day, his grandmother would be out working. She worked tirelessly for the sake of their family. Now wasn't the time for sentimentality. The fact that he had even gotten this opportunity was a miracle. He had to be ready for revenge. If possible, he should also find a better place for his mother and Kyung-jin to live. Entering his room, Yoon-sung walked to his desk, set his backpack down, and hung his jacket on the chair. His thoughts quickly turned to the upcoming board meeting in a week. Yoon-sung immediately opened a notebook. It was time to plan his next steps, meticulously and accurately. He picked up a pen and swiftly wrote down the steps for his plan. Within 2 years, we must seize control of the surrounding area. Lay the groundwork, and clean out their strongholds. To achieve that, Yoon-sung needed 3 things. The first condition was his own strength. To take on the gangsters at school, he needed to be strong enough to face them without fear. He couldn't train himself to that level alone. Yoon-sung remembered someone, a wrestler, holding a gold medal. If he could defeat that person, he would gain a significant advantage in the battles to come. The second condition was the current situation. His future enemies were actively recruiting more people. Yoon-sung jotted down the names of the members of Park Min-chun's gang. To deal with them, he needed to find people who shared his goals. After all, each of them played an important role, while Yoon-sung was still just a first-year high school student. Even with a perfect plan, he didn't have enough energy to carry it out alone. Sitting at his desk with his chin resting on his hand, Yoon-sung pondered the best way to resolve this issue. He needed to prioritize finding the right people. Finally, the most important part was the third condition. This problem was solvable, and Yoon-sung already had experience with it. It was about having support. Yoon-sung knew he needed backing to execute his plan. Without it, nothing could stand in his way. As he thought about it, images of those who relied on money to get their way appeared in his mind. People like Yoon Min-ho's mother, Principal Ah Dae-hoon, and even Kim In-chun. These greedy individuals would do anything for personal gain. To resolve the upcoming issue with the disciplinary committee, Yoon-sung knew he urgently needed backing. The scene shifted to the night sky, and the setting changed to a police station. In the police station's work area, a large man was yelling at the officers. "Do you know who I am? Do you know where I come from? If you don't know who I am, that proves you're spies, not real people. Just because you're cops, you think you can do whatever you want? You've pissed me off now." The man shouting threats was tall, muscular, and dressed in expensive clothes, with his hair dyed white. He wasn't sitting at a desk but standing, angrily yelling at the officers. One of the officers, clearly unable to tolerate the man's yelling any longer, frowned and said, "Sir, could you please calm down?" Upon hearing himself being called, "Sir," the man jumped up. "What, sir? Who are you calling sir? What are you talking about? I'm a 35-year-old virgin." The man leapt up, angrily rebutting, pointing to himself and declaring that he was only 35 years old. It turned out he was Go Chang-bio, the eldest son of the famous Myeongjin construction group in Daehan. Go Chang-bio, apparently a hot-tempered man, continued to curse, kicking a nearby chair. His outburst made the officers on duty nervous. Wary of dealing with such a volatile figure. One of the officers, sweating nervously, thought to himself, "Of course, we know who he is. Go Chang-bio, the eldest son of Myeongjin construction group. He's a dangerous figure in Daehan. If we make a mistake, we'll be in serious trouble." They had to be extra cautious now. If Go Chang-bio became more cautious, the inheritance battle for the family business could become an even bigger issue. But this time, the situation was different. In this case, they had no choice but to act according to the law. As Go Chang-bio continued to lose control, several officers stepped in, restraining his arms and shoulders. Angered by the restraint, he shouted, "Let go of me. Realizing that now wasn't the time to make a bigger scene, Go Changbyo held back his rage and sat heavily in a chair, muttering under his breath. Damn it, the observing officer thought to himself. This is better than having another department investigate him. If we let this go now, things could get worse. Sitting on the chair in front of the police desk, Go Changbyo sat in frustration, thinking to himself. Since he was the one who hit them first, he had no choice but to be here now. Those idiots were too weak to fight back, so they ended up getting taken in. What else could I have done? Damn it, if word gets out to the south. My rivals will be gossiping about this. The more he thought about it, the angrier he became. Go Changbyo even grabbed his own hair in frustration. Recently, his father had publicly announced the start of the inheritance battle, making Go and his younger brother compete to determine who was capable of taking over the family business. In other words, who would inherit his father's position. I only have a high school diploma, while my brother graduated from a prestigious university. 3 years ago, he married into a prominent family in Daehyun, so his position is very solid. If he finds out I'd been involved in an illegal brawl, I'll have to accept my fate. The officer sitting across from Go Changbyo looked at him without expression and said, Mr. Go Changbyo, I know you're upset right now, but this is your fault. You hit innocent people, I can't just let you go. Upon hearing the accusation, Go Changbyo raised his voice angrily. I already told you, they hit me first. The officer, startled by his outburst, quickly explained. Yes, you did say that, but there's no evidence to support it. There were no surveillance cameras and the victim's statements are consistent. Realizing the situation wasn't in his favor, Go Changbyo turned his head in frustration and cursed inwardly. Damn it, what inheritance battle? Should I just give up? As he turned away, lost in thought, he suddenly noticed a young boy sitting on a chair behind him, wearing a hoodie. Surprised, Go Changbyo stood up and asked in shock, what's a kid doing here? The boy wasn't just anyone, it was our protagonist, Kim Yoon-sung. Smiling nonchalantly, Yoon-sung pointed toward Go Changbyo and said, I'm here to testify on behalf of that man, who should I speak to? After finding the officer in charge of Go Changbyo's case, Yoon-sung handed over some evidence. The officer, sweating as he reviewed it, asked, how did you get this? Just like Go Changbyo had said, it was clear that the others had attacked him first. Anyone could see that the real culprits were the passers-by who had blocked his way. Thinking about Go Changbyo's situation, Yoon-sung calmly replied, I happened to see the incident while passing by. I figured someone would get in trouble since there were no surveillance cameras around. So I borrowed the dashcam footage from a nearby car and came here. Because I'm a minor, my testimony alone wouldn't be very convincing. He did his best to avoid the conflict, but those people grabbed and attacked him. He had no choice but to defend himself. It wasn't his fault, he's just too strong. One punch and they were down. It was clearly self-defense, officer. Yoon-sung spoke confidently, providing clear evidence and a reasonable explanation. The officer listened, and Go Changbyo, who had been astonished by Yoon-sung's defense, smiled and praised him. Well said, kid, you're a smart one. Relieved, Go Changbyo exhaled as though he had just been given a dose of calm. As long as there was evidence and a witness, the ones who got beaten would be dealt with fairly, and Go Changbyo wouldn't face any danger. The officer beside Yoon-sung, having observed Go Changbyo's expression, realized that after seeing the evidence and hearing the testimony, this was the turning point for him. Sweating, the officer said. I understand, let's leave it at that for now. Once the attackers, no, the victims, are treated, I'll arrange another meeting. My apologies, Mr. Go Changbyo. I should have looked into your statement more thoroughly, but seeing them all bloodied, I lost my judgment. The officer respectfully apologized, but Go Changbyo wasn't in the mood to forgive. Grabbing the officer by the collar, he pulled him close, frowning menacingly. I don't care, but I've got your face memorized. From now on, I'll make sure you live a peaceful life. As they both walked out of the police station, with Yoon-sung being a head shorter than Go Changbyo slung his arm over Yoon-sung's shoulder, continuing. Hey, kid, I really owe you. Without you, I'd have been in serious trouble. I'm Go Changbyo, and I never forget a favor, you know? As he thanked Yoon-sung, Go Changbyo reached into his pocket. Sure enough, he pulled out a wad of cash. Here, take this. It's just a token of my appreciation. Yoon-sung casually took the money and said, thank you. He happily pocketed the cash, leaving Go Changbyo somewhat surprised. Usually, a student at his age would hesitate upon receiving that much money. This kid, bringing dashcam footage here, really is something else. Go Changbyo thought to himself. Yoon-sung immediately asked Go Changbyo. Hey, can I ask you something out of curiosity? Do you think what happened today was just an accident? Go Chong-bio, puzzled, asked. What do you mean, kid? Yun-sung didn't hide anything and spoke frankly. To be direct, I know what kind of person you are. You're currently in a battle for inheritance with your younger brother, Go Chong-sak. You're the eldest son of the Myeongjin construction group. Surprised that this unfamiliar boy knew his identity, Go Chong-bio narrowed his eyes and cautiously asked. Who are you? Yun-sung quickly raised both hands in a gesture to show he meant no harm. I think this incident wasn't just a coincidence. The fact that I managed to get evidence to investigate it also wasn't luck. Think about it. What do you think I stand to gain? Yun-sung recalled memories from his past related to Go Chong-bio. Go Chong-bio was a well-known figure in Taejung, and because of that fame, Yun-sung remembered certain things about his family. How they lived and, ultimately, what happened to them. During his time bedridden and unconscious, Yun-sung could still hear everything happening around him, including news on TV. Returning to the present, Yun-sung made a proposal. If you truly feel grateful, give me 1 hour. I promise I won't do anything to harm you or your future, Mr. Go Chong-bio. The strange request, both odd and tempting, made Go Chong-bio serious. The setting looked like a cafe, with many customers chatting and laughing around them. Yun-sung wanted Go Chong-bio to give him an hour of his time to sit down and discuss things further in this cafe. Holding up a phone playing a video, Yun-sung showed it to Go Chong-bio. This is the original dashcam footage. I can prove it was self-defense. Which is why I didn't show them the beginning of the video. Holding the phone in one hand, displaying the footage, and sipping his coffee with the other, Yun-sung calmly continued. What happened to you today seems like a coincidence. 30 minutes before the incident, those 3 men were already gathered in front of a convenience store. From the outside, they looked like customers shopping, but in reality, they didn't move an inch for 30 minutes, as if they were waiting for something. The screen on the phone showed Go Chong-bio approaching the 3 men, and they immediately rushed him. Yun-sung explained further. When you arrived, they attacked you. They were told to provoke a fight, so they showed their faces and started cursing at you. You tried to stay calm, but in the end, you were forced to act first. After saying that, Yun-sung placed his coffee cup on the table, making a slight noise as if to lead the conversation forward. That's right. Chong-bio, you must have suspected this yourself. A series of recent events feels like they were deliberately arranged. The inheritance battle has just begun, and suddenly, all these bad things are happening. What if all of this was planned by Chong-sak to bring you down? Whether it's an accident or intentional, the severity of the situation makes a huge difference. Listening to Yun-sung carefully peel back the layers of doubt hidden deep inside him, Go Chong-bio lowered his head in anger, thinking. I've always had my suspicions, but I didn't want to admit that it could be my own brother. Raised well, but capable of such filthy actions. After a moment of reflection, Go Chong-bio asked Yun-sung, still doubtful. Why are you telling me all of this? Sitting across from him, Yun-sung heard Go Chong-bio's question. Why was he doing this? He lifted his coffee cup, taking a small sip as he weighed his thoughts. The Myeongjin construction company is only locally famous right now. They haven't made a big name for themselves yet, but with advanced technology and strong capital, they've achieved success in residential construction thanks to the philosophy of Chairman Gam Myeongjin, who believes that homes should never be treated as mere commodities. They reduced unnecessary costs and increased success rates. As a result, Myeongjin Construction became one of the major corporations. But at the same time, both of the chairman's sons faced troubles. Yun-sung sat there, remembering what he had witnessed. It was Go Chong-sak who provoked the situation first. Not long after, a shocking incident shook the entire city of Taejung. The impact was so great that even a victim of school bullying like me, who couldn't care about anything else, knew about it. The younger brother, in his desperation to win the inheritance, used every dirty trick imaginable. In the end, Go Chong-bio found out and beat his younger brother severely. The memory of that brutal beating lingered. Because of that blow, Go Chong-sak was left disabled for life. Not long after, Chairman Gam Myeongjin publicly declared that both of his sons were incompetent, unfit to take over the Myeongjin construction company. The incident caused a significant stir at the time. The investigation into the sons' actions spread widely, and their photos became viral memes on the internet. Yun-sung continued recalling the fallout. That's why I remember it all. It's also why I came to you, knowing your situation. I've been looking for evidence that you're being set up by your younger brother. Because of that scandal, Chairman Gam Myonjin hired a professional manager. Under the leadership of this skilled individual, Myonjin Construction grew significantly, turning into a well-known conglomerate. Yun-sung calmly explained how he had pieced together the past and how he had come to the realization that Go Chong-sok had likely plotted against his brother. To be honest, for the sake of Myonjin Construction Company, it would be better if the outcome doesn't change. Go Chong-bio isn't necessarily evil when he takes down his competitors. But he's a useless man with a rotten personality. As for his younger brother, Go Chong-sok, he's a despicable man who will do anything, regardless of morality, to achieve his goals. The wisest course of action, for the sake of Myonjin Construction Company, would be to abandon both of these brothers. That being said, this no longer matters to Yun-sung. The usefulness of these men is what's important to him now. Whether it's right or wrong, the butterfly effect will occur as the future changes. None of that concerns me. Even if the future turns worse because of my choices, Yun-sung doesn't care. In this lifetime, what's most important to him is first seeking revenge and then taking care of his family. With conviction in his decision, Yun-sung said to Go Chong-bio, "I'll help you. That way, you can take revenge on your younger brother, Go Chong-sok, and become the president of Myonjin Construction Company, earning yourself a reputable name." Go Chong-bio couldn't help but laugh mockingly. "Ha! Ridiculous. You're just a high school kid. How could you possibly help me?" He scorned Yun-sung. But Yun-sung persisted with his plan, trying to lure Go Chong-bio to his side. "Surely, someone is helping you in this race, but don't you see? Those who support you only speak sweet words, flattering you. Meanwhile, I, a mere high school student, can clearly analyze and describe your younger brother Go Chong-sok's plans as plain as day. All of those people around you? They belong to Go Chong-sok. Like someone awakened from a dream." Yun-sung snapped Go Chong-bio out of his delusion about the inheritance struggle. Gradually, Go Chong-bio became more serious as he faced Yun-sung. "I don't need you to believe me. Just give me a chance. A chance to build trust between us." Yun-sung's proposal left Go Chong-bio confused. He didn't know what to do. The truth was, he was incompetent. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been outwitted by his younger brother all this time. As they left the cafe, Go Chong-bio stood outside, smoking a cigarette and thinking over Yun-sung's analysis and proposal. "My head's about to explode," he muttered while smoking. Just then, a cafe staff member noticed him smoking and approached, reminding him that smoking was prohibited in the area, interrupting his train of thought. Go Chong-bio's vile nature resurfaced as he angrily shouted at the waiter, "Don't mess with me. Get out of here, or I'll level this whole cafe." His outburst terrified the waiter, who bowed his head and hurried back inside. Sitting inside the cafe, watching everything unfold through the glass, Yun-sung thought to himself, Go Chong-bio is a very cautious man. Being the eldest son of the Myonjin Construction Company in Daesan, he had earned the nickname, the ticking time bomb that no one should provoke. The reason Yun-sung hadn't approached Go Chong-bio earlier wasn't because he saw him as honorable, but because he knew Go Chong-bio was corrupt, a man willing to eliminate his own brother for power. Yun-sung chose him because he fit perfectly into his plan. Outside the cafe, Go Chong-bio continued smoking, muttering to himself, "Chong-sok, you should have known when to stop." He thought to himself, that kid was right. Compared to my younger brother, I'm nothing. It seems the position of heir is slipping from my grasp. But in this situation, is it worth trusting a 17-year-old kid? Especially after meeting him for the first time? He then recalled his father's words, "Chong-bio, if you lack the skills, find people with those skills to stand by your side. Don't discriminate based on age, gender, or status. If you can retain those with the abilities you need, you can lead Nongjin Construction." As if making up his mind, Go Chong-bio threw the cigarette butt to the ground, not caring anymore. He went back inside the cafe, sat across from Yun-sung, and said, "Tell me your plan first. After hearing it, I'll decide." The scene transitions to a man wearing glasses, with a calm demeanor, answering a phone call. "Exactly," he said. Whatever the person on the other end reported made him furious, and he angrily threw his phone to the ground, shouting, "You idiot. Do you even understand what failure means? It's all because of that old man's backward thinking. Why does he always insist that the eldest son must inherit? What era are we living in now?" From his tone, it was easy to deduce that this man was Go Chong-sok, Go Chong-bio's younger brother and his rival for the inheritance. He tried to suppress his anger, reminding himself, "Calm down, I'm still ahead." As long as nothing unusual happens, the inheritance is mine. At that moment, the sound of his phone ringing on the table interrupted his thoughts. He picked it up and asked, "What is it?" The person on the other end urgently said, "It's not good, sir. The madam has just entered Han Sun's office." Upon hearing the report about the madam's arrival, Go Chong-sak's face turned pale with panic. It seemed he, too, had secrets he desperately wanted to keep hidden. Returning to the conversation between Yoon Sung and Go Chong-bio, Yoon Sung laid out his viewpoint. To win this battle, you need to face reality. Who do you think is more suited to become the heir of Myeongjin construction? You or Go Chong-sak? Without a doubt, it's Go Chong-sak. Unlike you, he didn't even drop out of high school. He majored in business administration at a prestigious university, and after returning to the country, he married the daughter of a noble family. He then incited those he recruited into the company to demand a fair competition for the inheritance. This created the structure of the current inheritance struggle. This wasn't a coincidence. From the beginning, Go Chong-sak had been preparing to take your place, and now he's earned a high position in the company. Aside from being his older brother, you have nothing over him. Plus, you've already encountered numerous setbacks, haven't you? Even if you're aware of these differences, I still believe you can't win, Yoon Sung said. Go Chong-bio, slightly puzzled, asked, "What do you mean?" Yoon Sung continued explaining. Although Go Chong-sak is ahead of you in the race for inheritance, the chairman of Myeongjin still allows you to compete for only one reason. Your naive belief that you can still become the heir. That's why you're able to participate in this race. Even though the differences show that this competition is meaningless, the chairman of Myeongjin has not made a clear decision about the heir. In this case, and I'm saying, if it were possible for Go Chong-sak, a man who surpasses you in every way, to fall from grace, what do you think would happen? What if you had the ability to make that happen? Who do you think Chairman Myeongjin would choose? This is only the beginning of the inheritance battle. When you and your opponent are on equal footing, the only advantage of being the eldest son is a status that you can't reverse. At a certain hotel, Go Chong-sak sat there, dazed, having just learned that his wife had discovered his affair. She had broken down the door and given his mistress a thorough beating. This time, the support from his in-laws, a noble family, could be shaken. Not only had he cheated, but he had been caught red-handed by his wife. Back at the cafe, the two continued their conversation. Yoon Sung proposed more strategies for Go Chong-bio to change the balance of power. Raising three fingers, Yoon Sung said, "If you really want to win this power struggle, you need three things. First, family background, and in this area, you've already lost. While Go Chong-sak was busy allying himself with a powerful family through marriage, you were busy building meaningless relationships in the red light district." He picked up his cup of coffee, took a sip, and continued, "So, what's the second thing?" "The second is reputation. I don't think I need to explain further about your notorious behavior in Taejin, do I? Lastly, what you need is capability. While you were drowning in alcohol and women, Go Chong-sak was proving his worth through his business achievements." Hearing about the three things he lacked, Go Chong-bio, already impatient, turned away angrily. Yoon Sung continued, "He doesn't need to be excellent, because no matter what he does, he will always perform better than you. That's why we need to change these three aspects." Lee Yoon Sung raised one finger and said, "Let's go back to the first point, your family background. How can we change that? You can't, like Go Chong-sak, immediately marry the daughter of a powerful family. And you certainly can't gain power out of thin air. So, we must shift our thinking, destroy the relationship between him and his wife's family. Once he loses their support, the primary source of his backing, Go Chong-sak will be back at the starting line, just like us." In a luxurious office on a high floor, the sunset shone through the glass walls, yet the atmosphere inside was heavy. There were three people in the room, two sons standing in front of their father's desk. The father silently paced back and forth with his hands in his pockets. At this moment, the younger brother, Go Chong-sak, spoke up, "Father, I'm sorry." It was the youngest son who broke the silence. The father, Chairman Kim Myung-jin of Myeongjin Construction, turned to look at Go Chong-sak but quickly turned away, refusing to meet his eyes. Go Chong-sak continued to bow his head and apologize, "Father, I'm truly sorry." Kim Myung-jin, clearly furious, snapped, "You worthless scoundrel. I've already spoken with your father-in-law. He told me he would discipline you so that things don't escalate to a divorce. Your wife also messaged me, saying she's temporarily leaving you. She's going to wait and see how you make it up to her before deciding." As Go Chong-sak listened to the consequences his father described, sweat poured down his face, and he kept apologizing, "Father, I'm truly sorry." Kim Myung-jin, too angry to hear any more apologies, interrupted him, "Sorry my ass.
How many times do I have to tell you to get it through your thick skull? A man who can't control what's in his pants will destroy his family.
If you want to mess around with whores, you should have learned from Chang Bio.
Play with them and then drop them.
As he scolded his youngest son, Kim Myung-jin subtly hinted at his eldest son, Go Chang Bio. With a self-deprecating tone, he added, "It seems I've failed completely in raising the two of you." Turning to Go Chang Bio, he asked, "Chang Bio, why do you keep ending up at the police station?" But deep down, the father thought, he's probably going to play innocent like he always does. Back at the cafe, while they were discussing the plan, Go Chang Bio said, "That's right, it's a good idea. I should report Chang Suk to our father. Tell him that he's destroying our family's reputation. There's no way the old man can hand over the family business to that bastard. If my father is disappointed in Chang Suk, he won't let him continue with his childish ambitions." Yoon Sung immediately interrupted, "No, that's not a good idea." Kim Sung suddenly recalled a time when he was unconscious in a hospital bed, faintly overhearing information about Kim Myung-jin. Chairman Kim Myung-jin knew exactly what his two sons were up to. He was well aware that Go Chang Suk was plotting to bring down his older brother, Go Chang Bio, and yet he had said that it was just one way to let things run smoothly. That's why he hadn't interfered with Go Chang Suk's plans.
It seemed Kim Myung-jin didn't value uprightness as the main criterion for choosing his successor.
Even if the heir led a dirty life and used shady methods. What Chairman Kim Myung-jin truly wanted was someone who could contribute to the growth of the company. After all, this company was his life's work.
But would Chairman Kim Myung-jin lean toward Go Chang Bio just because he started criticizing Go Chang Suk's mistakes?
The answer was no. He would rather let a professional manager handle it than entrust it to these incompetent sons. If Go Chang Suk's disappointing performance continued,
dragging him down wouldn't increase Go Chang Bio's chances of inheriting the business.
After some thought, Yoon Sung made up his mind. Go Chang Bio needed to show that he was worthy of the chairman's position. He had to prove that he had completely changed.
Thinking this, Yoon Sung spoke up, "From now on, I'll tell you the plan." Switching back to the moment when Kim Myung-jin brought up Go Chang Bio's frequent visits to the police station, the eldest son's reaction was entirely different from before. Unlike what is expected, Go Chang Bio bowed his head and said, "Father, I'm sorry. I'll be more careful. This won't happen again, no matter the reason, it was my fault. As the eldest son of Myung-jin, I made such a mistake." Go Chang Bio lowered his head, acknowledging his fault. This new attitude surprised both his father and younger brother. Now, the dice of fate had begun to roll, and no one could tell how things would turn out under Yoon Sung's influence. Go Chang Bio continued bowing, "From now on, I'll be mindful of my position and act appropriately. Father, please allow me to reprimand my brother for what he has done." Kim Myung-jin seemed pleased with his eldest son's change, saying, "I heard that someone provoked you, but you did your best to avoid a fight. You did very well. You managed to resolve your issues on your own. I'm proud of you." As he said these words, he placed his hand on Go Chang Bio's shoulder, as if encouraging him. This action left Go Chang Bio astonished because, in his memory, his father had never once said to him, "I'm proud of you." The conversation ended, and the two brothers stepped out of their father's office. Go Chang Suk, still furious, muttered under his breath, "That damn bastard." He didn't dare to directly curse his older brother, only muttering insults in his heart. Who the hell told her the location of the hotel? If I catch that bastard, I'll tear him apart. But it seemed Go Chang Bio didn't care about his younger brother's words. He was still immersed in the praise his father had given him, repeating to himself, "Well done. I'm proud of you." He kept repeating those words, "Well done. I'm proud of you." He was so overwhelmed with joy that he couldn't help but tremble. My father has always been so strict, and now he's acknowledging me. He even patted my shoulder and praised me. Well done. I have to keep this up. Lost in his own thoughts, Go Chang Bio didn't react to anything his younger brother said and left before him. After leaving their father's office, Go Chang Bio got into his car, with Yoon Sung sitting in the passenger seat. Go Chang Bio immediately thanked him. "Thanks to you, my father praised me. Now tell me, what do I need to do to become chairman? I'll follow whatever you say." Sitting beside him, Yoon Sung smiled and said, "Don't get too excited. All we've done so far is bring Go Chang Sok back to square one in terms of support. To become chairman, you'll need to win 2 more rounds. I have a plan, but executing it now would be difficult. For now, join the company as a regular employee and observe how things work. I'll let you know when the time is right." Hearing the suggestion to work as a regular employee, Go Chang Bio wasn't pleased and asked, "You want me to work as a regular employee? How can I do that?"
But remembering the success he had tasted today thanks to Yun Sung, he quickly agreed. Alright, whatever you say, I'll do it. Yun Sung continued, there's one more thing, Go Chang Bio.
What is it? Go Chang Bio asked. Yun Sung smiled and replied, do you remember our conversation at the cafe? We're working together because we each have something the other wants. In return for my help, you agreed to grant me one wish, didn't you? Go Chang Bio didn't deny it, of course. What is it that I can't do for you?
Hearing this, Yun Sung was pleased and said, good, then I'll be straightforward. I want you to be a witness in my case during the disciplinary hearing. Meanwhile, in a stairwell, a man and a woman stood facing each other. The woman slapped the man across the face and her voice rang out like a bell, you bastard. You think I gave you all that money to hear these pathetic excuses? Do I look like I'm joking? Do you want to lose your job? It turned out the woman was Kim Sunja, the mother of Yun Miho. She looked fierce as she continued to scold him, if you don't want to be humiliated like this, you'd better expel the boy who dared to hit my son. Do you understand? The man she had slapped was Kim Yong-chun, the homeroom teacher of the 10th grade, who was being threatened by her. He could only bow his head in answer, yes, madam. After saying her piece, she stormed off angrily. Kim Yong-chun stood frozen in place, humiliated beyond belief. His anger boiled over as he muttered under his breath, damn it, who does she think she is? The scene shifts to Kim Ion-sung before the disciplinary hearing. He was extremely anxious and tried to persuade Yun Sung, you need to be realistic. Humbly admitting your fault is the only way to lessen the punishment. You can't solve this by being stubborn. Sitting calmly in his chair, Yun Sung replied, you should understand that Jun Miho's mother is pressuring you, but use your brain and think. Do you want me to expose your embezzlement or your affair? You should realize that if I go down, you're going down with me. Choose wisely if you still want to live. Good luck. With that, Yun Sung left, leaving Kim Yong-chun standing there in utter despair. In the classroom, the disciplinary hearing was about to begin. Kim Yong-chun entered the room, looking dejected, like a withered tree. In the corner of the meeting room, Principal Odi-1 was speaking softly with Kim Sunza, Yun Miho's mother. When have I ever disappointed you? I'll leave this matter in your hands. Principal Odi-1 then approached the table and sat down. Kim Yong-chun buried his head in his hands, groaning, it's over. I'll be known either as an adulterous husband or a corrupt teacher. I can't stay in Taejun anymore. What about all the money I've saved up? While he was lost in his thoughts, someone entered the room and pulled out a chair to sit down. The person's arrival shocked him, it was none other than Yun Sung and his parents. Inside the meeting room, the principal's voice echoed. Let's begin the disciplinary hearing. First, let's clarify the sequence of events. Kim Yong-chun, the guardian of the student involved, will present the case in this room. Yun Miho and his mother sat confidently, listening to the hearing. Upon hearing the principal call his name, Kim Yong-chun cast aside all hesitation, slammed his fist on the table, and stood up, raising his voice. The cause of this incident is already crystal clear. The bullies at this school, including Yun Miho, provoked their classmate before this happened. It's ridiculous how the attacker is now seen as the victim. It seemed Kim Yong-chun had decided to side with Yun Sung, as Yun Sung held critical leverage over him. Back before the hearing began. The person who had entered the room alongside Yun Sung was a tall man. It was Go Chang Bio, a new ally that Yun Sung had recruited. Seeing him, Kim Yong-chun was stunned, thinking to himself, who is that man sitting there? Am I seeing things? Isn't he the man I met at the adult entertainment district? He hurriedly took out his phone to check if his thoughts were correct, and the results seemed to confirm his suspicions. In other words, Yun Sung's guardian was none other than the eldest son of Myung-jin Construction? When I saw the participant list, I thought it was just a coincidence in names, but Go Chang Bio is one of the most powerful figures in this region. Not even Yun Minho's parents can compare to him. Why is someone like him here as Kim Yun Sung's guardian? He couldn't believe it and even covered his mouth in shock. I'll think about that later. Right now, the important thing is finding a way for me to survive. Apart from me. No one here realizes that he's Go Chang Bio. Now is the time for me to make a decision. Kim Yong-chun immediately made his stance clear. He stood up and spoke loudly, this is a truly disgusting situation. The attacker is being falsely portrayed as the victim. His bold statement stunned the principal. Teacher Kim, please clarify your remarks to avoid any misunderstandings. Hearing the principal, Kim Yong-chun had already made up his mind. If I'm going to do this, I had to go all the way. I've received numerous complaints about the 4 students in Park Min-chun's group since the beginning of the school year.
They've been bullying other students, and I've issued them strict warnings to stop. But their behavior has only escalated. Just a few days ago, Park Min-chun bullied Lee Young-min Kim Yun-sung, witnessing the scene, couldn't stand by any longer and spoke up, "Stop doing that. We're all students here." The teacher continued his performance, saying, out of the goodness of his heart. Yun-sung tried to prevent further conflict. But Park Min-chun called over a few of his friends to attack Yun-sung. "If someone is trying to harm us, should we just sit there and wait?" What Kim Yun-sung did was legitimate self-defense. Young Min-ho, too, is a key figure in Park Min-chun's group. He encouraged his friends to attack. But Yun-sung only fought back to defend himself, and he tried his best to avoid causing serious harm. The boy had no other choice. I do agree that Yun-sung's actions in defending himself may have been a bit excessive, but considering the circumstances and the cause, if we only punish Kim Yun-sung, aren't we no different from those who condone school violence? At this point, Kim Young-chun bowed his head, ending his statement. Hearing words that did not align with his expectations, the principal immediately raised his voice. "What are you saying, Teacher Kim? Don't escalate the issue, we are discussing a serious matter here, the first of its kind at school, where 4 students ended up in the emergency room. The fact that the supposed victim is actually the perpetrator of the violence has not been verified, and that's what we need to discuss. Violence cannot be excused under any circumstances. Furthermore, we've never heard or witnessed any reports of such bad behavior from any of the top students. All of the students involved are from our school. If we had to punish a student for wrongdoing, it feels like a knife cutting into me. But no matter what, punishment is necessary to prevent unfortunate incidents like this from happening again. This time, we need to identify the true culprit and mete out appropriate punishment so that the parents who have entrusted their children to our school can feel reassured, right?" The principal uttered these empty words as he glanced at young Minho's mother and said, "Well then, let's hear from young Minho. The victim's account might be more accurate, right?" Upon hearing his turn to speak, young Minho began to feign trembling as he recounted the events he supposedly experienced, which were entirely different from what the homeroom teacher had said. He claimed that when he entered the classroom, he saw Min-chun being beaten by Kim Yun-sung. He asked the other students what had happened, and they told him that Kim Yun-sung had always liked bullying Min-chun. The teacher can call on other students to testify to this. Kim Yun-sung was the one who attacked first, this is the truth. Everything I'm saying is true, I'm not lying. Seeing his friend being beaten, he continued, I couldn't just stand by and watch, so I ran over. As he spoke, young Minho wore a pained expression, covering his face with his hands as if he was genuinely frightened. He went on, Kim Yun-sung didn't hesitate to use a weapon to attack. Of course, seeing so many people gather around, Kim Yun-sung must have been scared. But Min-chun looked so pitiful. We didn't have time to notice what Kim Yun-sung's expression was like at that moment. I really don't understand why the teacher keeps blaming everything on us. That's not true, teacher. Do you remember the last time Kim Yun-sung was punished? Back then, in front of everyone in the teacher's office, he attacked me, even though I hadn't done anything. Is everything my fault? He bowed his head, speaking these lies without the slightest shame, justifying himself. But no one could see the face hidden behind his hands. How disgustingly pleased it was. He was smirking with satisfaction, having successfully made sure Yun-sung would receive a severe punishment. Seeing her son pretend to be terrified, young Minho's mother stood up and walked over to him. She hugged him, lifted his face, and shouted, "Everyone, look at my son. The child I raised with my own hands, who's never dared to lift a finger against anyone, and now he's in this state. Can any of you stand for this?" As she continued, she screamed. A vile act of violence has occurred at this horrible school. What am I supposed to do? This time it's my son, but who knows whose child will suffer next. We, as parents, cannot sit idly by. We must punish these wicked people. The other parents in the room, hearing young Minho's mother's emotional outburst, began to murmur amongst themselves. One said, "I think she's right." Another added, "There's no way we can forgive someone like that. We must punish him." Her words ignited the emotions of everyone present, making them side with young Minho and his mother, who felt immensely satisfied with the support. The scene shifts to a hospital. Park Min-chun was playing games on his phone and asked, "It's probably starting now, right?" One of his friends, standing nearby, chuckled and replied, "Definitely a win. Kim Yun-sung is probably in a terrible spot right now. He should have known how fierce young Minho's mother is. She's a force to be reckoned with. For Minho, she'd turn the whole school upside down. Can you imagine someone like her letting this go easily after seeing her son like that?" Hearing his friend's analysis, Min Chun smiled, set his phone down, and said, "You're right. If that bastard doesn't get expelled, I'll make him kneel and beg us for mercy. Even if he gets expelled, I'll follow him and make him pay." With a bruised face covered in bandages, another boy sitting nearby asked, "Do you think we'll get compensation?" His friend replied, "Of course. We'll get at least $1,000,000, enough to buy a motorcycle and throw a party in the park with some girls." The others laughed in agreement. That sounds like a pretty good plan. Back in the meeting room, the atmosphere had grown tense again. After an hour of silence, Kim Yun-sung's guardian, Go Chang-bio, finally spoke up, "You bitch. Tell the truth about what really happened, you vile woman. Are you trying to make everyone believe these lies? Do you even know what really happened? Do you not think that the demon disguised as a human is the cause of all of this?" Hearing Go Chang-bio's rude outburst, the principal angrily shouted, "What are you saying? Don't call my students demons." Go Chang-bio did not back down, roaring, "If he's not a demon, then I won't call him one. I've personally looked into Park Min-chun's group. They bully, extort, and steal from other students. They have quite a reputation. Everyone around here knows about them. Why are you trying to protect them? Are you stupid, or have you already received a reasonable price from them? I know the ambulance came because Park Min-chun's group got hurt. But it was all due to Kim Yun-sung's legitimate self-defense. The teacher has already said it, we need to get to the root of the issue. You all need to be honest. When you were young, how did you stand back up after being attacked by thugs?" Upon hearing someone call her precious son a thug, young Minho's mother immediately jumped up, yelling, "You bastard! Who are you calling a thug? How is my son a thug? Who the hell are you? I've heard that Kim Yun-sung doesn't have any parents, so who are you to talk to me like that?" Go Chang-bio smirked coldly, looking at the woman with disdain. He recalled the conversation in the car when Yun-sung had asked him to be his guardian. This had surprised Chang-bio, and he had asked, "Be your guardian? Why? If you need money, just tell me." Yun-sung had calmly explained, "To be precise, I need your wealth for the plan I'm working on, but it's not just about money. I've chosen a simpler way, like investment. To beat someone who has everything, you must have everything too. Among those things, I can gain power from you, Go Chang-bio." He continued explaining, "I'll be honest with you. I'm planning to deal with certain things happening at school. These aren't just small conflicts or trivial issues, I'm going to escalate them into legal matters. Whenever something like this happens, I hope you can back me up and help resolve the issues. With you behind me, at least in Taejun, no one will dare touch me. If you agree, show me proof, and I assure you, everything I do will help you become the chairman of Myeongjin Construction or handle even more difficult tasks." Hearing Yun-sung's assurance, Go Chang-bio had been placated, saying, "Don't worry. I'm more than willing. Trust me, no matter what you do or who's involved, it won't be a problem." Back in the meeting room, Go Chang-bio slightly bowed his head and said, "Did someone ask who I am? I'm Yun-sung's guardian and the eldest son of Myeongjin Construction." As the meeting continued, Go Chang-bio spoke again, "Do you even know who you're talking about? Yun-sung is like a beloved younger brother to me. He's not the type to go around causing trouble. But I've heard he's been called to explain himself to the disciplinary board, so I dropped everything to come here. Jaeon in high school is very well known in Taejun. I had hoped Yun-sung could attend school normally. I even planned to sponsor the school in the name of Myeongjin Construction. But now, I think I'll have to reconsider that. I never expected the school to be this bad." Sitting nearby, Yun Minho's mother angrily asked, "Are you threatening us?" Go Chang-bio calmly replied, "I'm just stating the truth. What exactly are you teaching here? Isn't education supposed to guide students toward being virtuous and helping them develop their abilities? So why is Yun-sung, who fought against bullies to protect his friend, being punished? You ignored the fact that he was being bullied and instead punished him for defending himself, even though it was his first act of violence. Where were you when he was being beaten? Why did Jaeon in high school ignore the fact that he was being bullied? Is it because he's poor, or because you're being paid off by the parents of the bullies?" Go Chang-bio continued to expose the school's true colors, laying bare the logic that both the principal and teachers were using, favoring the rich and powerful while disregarding the poor. He went on, "If that's why the school turned a blind eye to this situation, then I won't hold back. Dae-san's hopeful environment. I'll investigate this thoroughly. Additionally, as for the bully pretending to be a victim, along with Yun Minho's group, I'll make sure none of you dare set foot in Dae-san again. Consider this a warning." This blatant threat from Go Chang-bio sent chills through everyone in the meeting room, and they began murmuring among themselves.
The principal, realizing who Yun Sung's guardian was, felt a wave of fear. He had encountered someone as influential as Go Chang-bio and began to wonder.
What should I do? He's the son of Myung-jin Construction. Are they related? Since when?
I was told Kim Yun-sung was an orphan and that he lived with his grandmother and brother. If I side with Yun Minho, I'll never be able to establish a connection with Myung-jin Construction.
I could be forced out of Daesan just for going against their warning.
But if I cut ties with Yun Minho, the principal thought, this could be an opportunity to make a good impression on Myung-jin Construction.
If they sponsor the school, Jeonin could become the best school in the country.
Even if I'm called a traitor or an idiot, for the future of Jeonin school, there's no other choice. Having weighed the pros and cons, the principal quickly decided whose side to take and said, in fact, I've heard rumors of a group of students bullying others since the beginning of the school year.
If these rumors are true, then Yun Minho is the ringleader.
Hearing this, the traitorous principal infuriated Yun Minho's mother, who began yelling at him, demanding that he reconsider.
The principal pretended not to notice her outburst and calmly responded, now is not the time for the victim's mother to speak.
I'm not saying this to avoid responsibility, but simply stating the facts in front of us. The disciplinary board was established to make decisions based on the truth.
Kim Yun-sung is one of the top students.
He must have had a valid reason for his actions, so we should let him speak first, the principal said.
Hearing his name mentioned, Yun-sung bowed his head, thinking to himself, finally, they're asking for my side of the story. When I had no one backing me, no one would listen. If someone had heard me out like this before,
maybe I wouldn't have died the way I did in my past life.
Yun-sung began to explain to everyone. I've told many teachers that Park Min-chun's gang was bullying other students.
Each time I reported it to a teacher, they would say the same thing, Park Min-chun wouldn't do something like that.
You must be joking, right? Min-chun would then pretend to be well-behaved and answer, of course, teacher. The teachers ignored the situation, telling us, stop making a fuss. You're old enough to handle these things on your own.
Sometimes, the teachers would say they'd find a way to resolve it, but they never addressed the core issue. Even when they did want to address it, they only gave light scoldings, which allowed the bullies to continue their bad behavior without worrying about any consequences.
Yes, I hit Yun Minho.
I also hit Park Min-chun and the others.
But why am I sitting here? Is it just because I hit them once? Or because I hit them too hard?
No, it's because the adults believe I have no power. Even if I were bullied or thrown off a roof, without power, everything would be swept under the rug. The rich and the poor are held to different laws. That's a fact that cannot be changed, and I intend to use that truth.
Yun-sung continued, there's a gang bullying students in this school. Punish them first.
If not, I'll release information about this case to the public, and everyone will know the true face of Jaeon in high school.
The school will become a disgrace to Daesan.
The only way to silence me is to deliver a fair verdict. Seeing the situation take a turn, Yun Minho's mother jumped up to defend her son, shouting, I won't let my son be judged like this.
I don't agree with this.
She walked to the corner of the room, away from the others, and pulled out her phone to call her husband. You bastard, just wait.
I'm calling my husband. On the other end, her husband's voice came through, what's going on?
She quickly replied, I told you, the disciplinary board has been formed to deal with Minho's situation.
They're putting all the blame on him.
Teacher Kim Young-chun and the principal are siding with that brat because of his family's sponsorship.
That boy, he's the eldest son of Myung-jin Construction. He's ignoring our connections. Where are you? Can you come here right now?
You need to show them who we are.
Her husband asked, Go Chang-bio? He's the main sponsor? She absent-mindedly asked, how do you know?
Her husband quickly responded, I'll be there soon to teach that kid a lesson. Before she could finish speaking, her husband exploded over the phone.
How dare you do this to the eldest son of Myung-jin Construction? Do you want our entire family to be ruined? Get home immediately.
Whether Minho was at fault or not, let him face the punishment and come home right now. What else they said after that, no one knew. That evening, after the meeting ended, Kim Yun-sung returned to his rundown house. He collapsed onto his bed, raised his hand to his forehead, and reflected on the day.
We have decided to discipline Kim Yun-sung by requiring him to complete 100 hours of community service for causing violence at school.
Additionally, 4 other students, including Yun Minho, have been expelled. The disciplinary decision had been made. Yun Minho, who had lived a life of luxury and never faced hardship, couldn't accept the fact that he was being expelled while Yun-sung wasn't. Enraged, Yun-sung called out to him. And when Yun Minho turned to see his enemy, he roared and charged at him, shouting, You bastard! I'll kill you! But just as he was about to strike Yun Sung, a hand grabbed his arm. When he saw who it was, Yun Minho couldn't believe his eyes and muttered, "Mother."
Yun Sung then gave him an order, kneel and beg for forgiveness. Yun Minho, thinking he had misheard, asked in disbelief, "What?"
Yun Sung smirked and repeated, "I said, kneel and beg for forgiveness."
Feeling utterly humiliated, Yun Minho screamed in rage, "Why should I do that? I've already been expelled, and you expect me to kneel?" Yun Sung scoffed and replied, "Maybe you should ask your mother whether you should kneel or not." Yun Sung threatened him, "You'd better do as I say and make me happy. Who knows, maybe I'll lighten your punishment." At that moment, Yun Minho's mother spoke up, "Minho, kneel and beg for forgiveness." Stunned that his own mother would say such a thing, Yun Minho asked sharply, "Why are you making me do this?" But his mother, as if terrified of something, yelled back at him, "Do it! Hurry up!" Seeing his mother's reaction, Yun Minho had no choice but to follow Yun Sung's command. He knelt down and said, "I'm sorry. I won't do it again." Watching this scene, Yun Sung was reminded of his past, when his own father had once knelt humbly in front of Yun Minho's mother, apologizing softly. Now, the tables had turned. The one kneeling was her precious son. Yun Sung leaned down and whispered into Yun Minho's ear, "But what should I do? This isn't enough to make me feel better. You should start praying because, from now on, your future is going to be very dark." And with that, the disciplinary board meeting concluded. I need to go further, to get closer to the one at the top. At that moment, the phone on my bedside table buzzed. Yun Sung picked it up and saw a message. "Min Chae-yun, this is Park Min Chun. Can we meet? Please, just meet me once." Kim Yun Sung calmly walked to a spot under a street lamp, where there was a bench in the park. Park Min Chun was standing there. His face was covered with bandages from various injuries, and he was still wearing a patient's gown. He forced a strained smile and extended his hand, greeting, "You're here. Thank you for coming." Kim Yun Sung frowned coldly and said, "Cut the small talk and get to the point." Park Min Chun lowered his head, his eyes darting nervously. "All right, Kim Yun Sung." He clenched his fists, forcing the words out, "The bullying and the attack on you that day, it was my fault. I was immature. I didn't think about the pain we were causing you." Kim Yun Sung stared at him with amusement in his eyes as Park Min Chun continued to apologize. "After spending a week in the hospital, I've accepted all the punishment from the disciplinary board. I swear I won't make the same mistakes again." Finally, he looked up, his injured and bandaged face wrinkling with worry. "So could you let this go?" Before Yun Sung could respond, Park Min Chun hastily tried to explain, "I've already spoken to the teachers. They said if you agree, I won't be expelled. Yun Minho and his family have already accepted the punishment, so he can't change that decision." Fear and anxiety filled Park Min Chun's eyes, but he continued desperately trying to persuade Yun Sung. "But they said you can vouch for us. Can you give us one more chance? If we're expelled, our lives will be ruined." He stepped closer, placing his scarred hands on Yun Sung's shoulders, lowering his voice to beg, "Please, just this once. I'll do anything to repay you, climb mountains, walk through fire, anything for you." His scarred hands rested on Yun Sung's shoulders as he pleaded. Yet, Kim Yun Sung's face remained expressionless. In his mind, Yun Sung thought, it must be shocking for them to be expelled. Even though they acted like killers in front of those kids, they're still just 17. Just high school students with uncertain futures. Park Min Chun nervously awaited Yun Sung's answer. Yun Sung remained deep in thought. No way. There's no place in Daesan that will accept them now. Their eyes are full of fear. Expulsion, coupled with being labeled as involved in school violence, was enough for them to believe their lives were over. Suddenly, Park Min Chun spoke up again. "This situation has put us in danger too." He turned around, his hands still resting on Kim Yun Sung's shoulders, and lowered his voice, "But someone ordered us to bully you. That person is." Before he could finish, Kim Yun Sung cut him off, "I already know." Kim Yun Sung's response left Park Min Chun wide-eyed in shock. The aura of menace radiating from Yun Sung grew stronger as he grabbed the arm that Park Min Chun had placed on his shoulder, glaring at him. "There's someone behind all of this. I know who it is." Yun Sung then recalled the past. Echoes of a news report announcing a shocking revelation. The mastermind behind several school bullying cases had been exposed. A few years after Yun Sung fell into a coma, another bullied student had jumped to their death. In the student's suicide note, a disturbing truth was revealed. Wang Kim-won, a prestigious school in Gangnam, had a secret system in place. The core members of this organization remained hidden, even in the future. The school's director had seen the harm caused by school violence and turned it into a profitable business. He recruited bullies and students with similar power, targeting students whose parents were wealthy and influential, offering them protection within the school. This system ensured that students under their control would achieve outstanding results. If any other student began to surpass them, the recruited students were said to eliminate the competition. This thought echoed through Kim Yoon-sung's mind. If one of them was surpassed by another student, those recruited students would be dispatched to take out the leading student. Back in the present, Kim Yoon-sung tightened his grip on Park Min-chun's arm, pulling him away. In the future, Yoon-sung thought, I saw how the peripheral members of Wang Kim-won were exposed. Only to be forgotten soon after. The identities of the two core members weren't revealed until the very end. His eyes widened, bloodshot with fury. To complete my revenge on those who pushed me into hell, I must investigate Wang Kim-won and destroy it. Kim Yoon-sung stared into Park Min-chun's eyes and muttered, Wang Kim-won. But something didn't feel right. He continued. Park Min-chun, this doesn't make sense. The headquarters of Wang Kim-won are in Seoul and Gyeonggi. There's no way their influence could have reached Daesan. Who hired you? How did they reach you? Park Min-chun stayed silent for a long time before finally deciding to speak. It was Senior Shin Min. Kim Yoon-sung's eyes widened in shock as he exclaimed, Shin Yeomin? He thought to himself. Shin Yeomin is a senior at the school, a thug who runs things here. He must be one of the members of Wang Kim-won. Kim Yoon-sung hadn't expected Shin Yeomin to be a member of Wang Kim-won, as orders from the organization always came from elsewhere, like military commands. Frowning, unable to hide his surprise, he considered, Shin Yeomin wouldn't be able to find clients on his own, but at the very least, he could contact Wang Kim-won. I could use him to expose them. But Yoon-sung also remembered Shin Yeomin's formidable reputation in the reign. Shin Yeomin won't easily give up information. Moreover, he's strong enough to become a professional boxer in the future. If I try to confront him now with my current skills, I'll be completely defeated. I need to think of a way to deal with him. After a moment of contemplation, Kim Yoon-sung slowly spoke. You want me to forgive you, right? He grabbed Park Min-chun by the collar. Terrified, Park Min-chun stammered, Hyun-sung. At that moment, Kim Yoon-sung looked terrifying. The menacing aura around him and the storm of emotion swirling within him made his presence overwhelming. Even while in a coma, he could vividly recall the image of his father kneeling before them, begging for forgiveness. Regret? I won't let that happen again. Kim Yoon-sung leaned in close to Park Min-chun's face, speaking each word with intimidating clarity. From now on, every time we meet, you'll know what's coming. Without hesitation, Kim Yoon-sung threw a punch at Park Min-chun's face, followed by a relentless barrage of blows. Each punch landed with a bone-crushing force, causing Park Min-chun's eyes to roll back in agony, his mouth gaping in pain. In his previous life, Park Min-chun had become a fanatical father, obsessed with his daughter. Kim Yoon-sung yanked him up by the collar, shouting, Yoon Min-ho and the others too, they all succeeded. I can't believe they ended up living good lives. As soon as Yoon Min-ho's name was mentioned, another punch slammed into Park Min-chun's face. By now, he was completely motionless, unable to fight back. Maybe this is karma, thought Yoon-sung, still viciously striking Park Min-chun's face without mercy. This pain will follow you for the rest of your life. The next morning in class, students were whispering amongst themselves, really? That's insane. He used that lock to beat him up. Yoon Min-ho was so scared he didn't even dare fight back. When I saw Kim Yoon-sung fighting back, I thought for sure he wouldn't be able to take him down. Others were curious, why did Kim Yoon-sung change like that? He wasn't like this before. A student patted his friend on the shoulder, commenting, people who look kind are actually the scariest demons. When they're angry, they're the most terrifying, unable to control themselves. At that moment, Kim Yoon-sung opened the classroom door and walked in. He slowly made his way to his seat, placed his bag on the desk, and sat down, resting his chin in his hand as he gazed out the window. From behind, a voice called out. Kim Yoon-sung, thank you. Kim Yoon-sung turned around and saw Lee Young-min. Lee Young-min continued, I heard what happened. Park Min-chun and the others have been expelled, all thanks to you. Tell me what you need, and I'll give you anything. Just say it. After hearing this, Kim Yoon-sung remained silent. The other students in the classroom were also quiet, listening intently. Kim Yoon-sung finally spoke, you have nothing to do with me, so why come to thank me now? Lee Young-min's face turned pale, revealing his fear. Kim Yoon-sung added. You were too scared to testify before, and now you come to thank me? Kim Yoon-sung frowned, his voice laced with annoyance, let me warn you.
I don't care about the crap that happened to you, so get lost.
I don't want to see you around here anymore. Meanwhile, on the school rooftop, one of Shin Hyo-min's followers asked, "What's your plan now?"
Park Min-chan and the others have been expelled, and our plan's gone down the drain. He spat on the still-burning cigarette stub. Shin Hyo-min frowned and said, "You told me that kid didn't have any power behind him, but then we find out he's the only son of the Myeongjin construction conglomerate." He crushed the cigarette stub under his foot and added, "Now that things have turned out like this,
no one's going to touch Kim Yoon-sung anymore. Who in Daesan could stand up to Myeongjin construction?" Another lackey gestured wildly, "So, are you giving up?"
Shin Hyo-min casually leaned against the railing and replied, "The situation's bad, but we still have an opportunity."
"It's clear now, isn't it? This is our chance to make more money."
With a malicious grin, Shin Hyo-min clenched his fist and said, "Just taking care of one student earns us 10,000 won. We should be thankful to them for giving us this chance."
He glared and asked, "Who's the freshman that called him up to the rooftop?"
Back in the classroom, the teacher was lecturing while Kim Yoon-sung listened attentively.
"To defeat Won Kim-won, I need to study even harder.
Their target is the top students, the members of their group."
Kim Yoon-sung took detailed notes. "If I become the best student, Won Kim-won will have no choice but to make a move."
Kim Yoon-sung pondered to himself. "They're like a thorn in my side.
Back in middle school, I was an excellent student.
That's why Park Min-chan and the others targeted me, because someone ordered Shin Ioni-min to go after me." Kim Yoon-sung glanced around the classroom, thinking, in this class or somewhere in this school, the real mastermind is hiding. They want me to disappear so they can rise to the top. He observed his classmates carefully. A few students stood out in his mind, but without any evidence, he couldn't act yet. What I need to do now is prepare for what may happen in the future. As Kim Yoon-sung walked down the street, he stopped in front of a small shop with a sign that read, "Young Do-chul, Korea's first UFO champion and world UFO champion." He stared at the sign. But now, he's just a forgotten relic of the past. Kim Yoon-sung entered the shop and looked around. As expected, the place was in poor condition. Suddenly, a voice called out, "Welcome." A man in a blue tracksuit with long hair greeted him. "Oh, are you here to sign up?" Kim Yoon-sung responded, "I want to become better at fighting." He grinned, an ominous aura surrounding him. "That's what I'm lacking." Meanwhile, Shin Hyo-min and his gang were on the rooftop, waiting for the strongest freshman. When the student arrived, Shin Hyo-min asked, "Your name is Park Jin-woo, right?" The freshman, drenched in sweat, nodded, "Yes, I'm Park Jin-woo." Shin Hyo-min smiled slyly, "You've got a nice physique. I heard you used to run errands, right?" He placed his hand on Park Jin-woo's face and said, "I need you to do something for me. There's a freshman named Kim Yoon-sung. Turn him into an idiot, make sure he'll never be able to live a normal life again." Shin Hyo-min grinned maliciously, already envisioning Kim Yoon-sung's downfall. Meanwhile, at the gym, young Do Cheon invited Kim Yoon-sung into the room. As he reached into his pocket, he said, "You look like a high school student. You've come to the right place." He smiled warmly and continued, "Let me tell you a little about our gym.